Hello, I am Hazel, the Witch of the Forest of Three Darknesses. A memory flashes by Euro. This isn't my real name. Anyway, no one calls me by that name anymore. It's all because I accidentally slipped, fell into a river, and lost my life. And so, I was reincarnated as the witch, the villain in a fairy tale. She confusedly felt around her body and thought to herself, now I don't even know who I am. I possess a body so tough, it could survive even on a barren island. I've tried many other ways to adapt. A voice echoed from the small house. Magic is the best. I even developed a new hobby, baking gingerbread men. Another hobby is offering them to others. Two friends took her cookies. Their faces changed color as they asked, didn't they just move? Hazel just smiled brightly and said, don't refuse now. But perhaps it was due to the karma of the original body. While she was sweeping the yard outside, she heard newsboys cry, "Extra, extra!" A newspaper flew and hit her right in the face. Reading the news in the paper, she was a bit bewildered. Hazel, the Witch of the Dark Forest, has baked people. After reading, she cursed to herself, WTF these people. They called Hazel the man-eating Witch of the Black Forest. No one goes there to play. So, after much consideration, the method I came up with was to turn it into a super sweet house that no one could ignore. Hazel joyfully thought to herself, isn't this too pretty? People won't be able to take their eyes off it. If this really works, just the thought of it made her so happy, she skipped and danced around. Seeing someone looking curiously at the house, Hazel peeked out inquisitively. Oh, it's already working. The little girl curiously touched the wall. It looks so delicious. Suddenly, the girl took a piece of candy down and ate it. Hazel's voice from behind startled the girl. That it's delicious, isn't it? There's plenty more inside and even tea. After hearing this, the girl threw down her basket and ran away in fear. The man-eating witch. A few mushrooms fell out of the girl's basket. Hazel sadly stroked her head. It's so lonely. My previous life was like this too, but ever since that time, in her memory, Hazel remembered a hand gently touching her shoulder. A warm voice rang out, let's eat. She happily thought to herself, I still have my grandmother. A warm hand took hers, and a familiar voice rang out. Life is just about eating and sleeping. Even if it's just one meal, you have to eat until you're full. Suddenly, Hazel frowned, just as my late grandmother said. First, I have to eat something to fill myself up and get some energy. Hazel immediately used magic to conjure sweets. Very quickly, a tea table full of pastries appeared. She cheerfully used magic to sprinkle something on a few cookies. Should I act like a lady today? She wondered, looking at the moving cookies. She exclaimed with delight, so cute. Hello, carrot cake, apple pie, countless types of cookies, and even a basket of pastries. Looking at the idyllic scene made Hazel cry out in happiness. Amazing. Today is perfect too. She was immersed in happiness. It would be wonderful if someone could sit and eat with me. Looking at the sulking cookie, she felt a little sad. Even so, I'm not alone. Daisy drooled, looking at the cookie in front of her. Hazel picked her up and scolded lovingly. You can't have that, Daisy. Let me make another one for you. Daisy looked at her and asked, can I eat it too? Larry D spoke up, of course, Daisy. She'll give you some no matter what. She sighed and said, Larry D, don't tease Daisy. Larry D's fur stood on end as he yelled, don't make my body gain weight. Hazel poured tea, feeling helpless. She thought to herself, it's a little lonely, it's true. But she quickly broke into a smile. But I have Larry D and Daisy, and they know magic just like me. This little one, named Daisy, has the body of a cat on the outside, but inside is the soul of a dog. Conversely, inside this dog's body is the soul of a cat. His name is Larry D. Although soul swapping is a forbidden magic, some say that the original witch violated the taboo and conducted an experiment. Hazel cast a spell and wondered, yes, they say, what kind of person was the evil witch Hazel really? I only know that the story is based on Hansel and Gretel. Holding a cookie in her hand, she continued to think that if Hansel and Gretel come looking, will I take on a role of the witch and eat them? Suddenly, a personality check is initiated. At the same time, memories flooded back, and she clutched her head in anguish, crying, but I don't eat people. It's not fair. What is the story's plot? I don't even know. Can I be a good witch? I don't want to eat people. Suddenly, Hazel heard a noise outside. She immediately stood up and looked out. Outside, two children were devouring the sweets. One child's mouth was covered in crumbs. After finishing, Luca exclaimed, this is so delicious. Suddenly, a hand covered the little boy's mouth. Luna put a finger to her lips, signaling him to be quiet. The little boy whispered softly, there's an evil witch here. She looked on in surprise. Perhaps those two are. Hazel dazedly touched the glass. Hansel and Gretel. So this fairy tale is finally. An image of the two children appeared in Hazel's hand. In her shock, she wondered, is something about to happen? The sound of people chattering and a hand slowly sinking under the water. Oh my God. Someone call 911. A black screen appeared. A woman struggled in the water. Help, help. Another moment of silence appeared. I can't swim, but I jumped in without a second thought to save the child who fell into the river. Her thoughts slowly sank to the bottom of the river. Although this was a foolish act, I don't regret it, because that child will return to their family. Unlike me, who has no one to return to. Her body slowly sank, along with a strong desire to live, but I definitely don't want to die yet. Her eyes slowly opened. Looking at the unfamiliar place, she wondered curiously, the ceiling looks so strange. A figure just passed by. Who was that? Suddenly, there was a loud scream upon seeing a skull wearing a hat. She gasped and sat up. Where is this? Then the ancient books. Seeing a glowing chest, she turned to look. Holding a gold coin in her hand, she said, bewildered, this is the gold coin I drew. Seeing her reflection in the gold coin, she was surprised. MYI color is so strange. She curiously turned to look at the mirror beside her, and my voice sounds so different. Her eyes widened as she looked at the mirror at her own reflection. The sound of the coin clattering on the ground. The coin rolled across the floor. This face, she asked herself in surprise, a witch. This time, I've transmigrated into the world of the fairy tale book that I illustrated. By day, I was a kindergarten teacher, but at night, my side job was being an illustrator. Hazel put on her glasses and asked, are you saying you want to change the witch's appearance because she looks too scary? She stared intently at the manuscript and thought to herself, I mean, how scary can the appearance of a fairy tale character in an illustrated book be? Yes, I gave up because it was truly terrifying. Hazel answered the phone, sleep-deprived. Yes. Did you say the character was approved? Thank you. It's nothing. I'm just a little sleep-deprived. Because I only focused on portraying this witch's personality, I didn't expect to focus on her appearance. Besides, I never thought I would meet fairy tale characters in real life like this. Hazel unconsciously smiled. Standing on the balcony, she thought to herself, finally, there's something new in my boring life. Hazel used magic to lift the two children up and exclaimed, you little rascals, I caught you now. The two children turned pale and shouted in unison, evil witch. She snapped her fingers and said, here's the evil witch. Hazel gleefully used magic to tease the two of them. The two children stared with wide, curious eyes, no matter what happened. She held them in her arms and said cheerfully, the evil which will get you now that you've seen me. Once inside the house, she immediately put the two little ones down. You little rascals. Luna stood protectively in front of her younger brother and shouted, let us go right now. How dare you? Luca peeked his little head out to look. At the same time, a voice came from the boy's hand. Don't eat me. I don't taste good. Hearing this, Hazel was stunned. An heirloom cookie. She raised her hand and said in a low voice, anyway. Then she bent down and began to lecture the children. If you two have eaten food from my house, you should have greeted me by saying, thank you. Luna stubbornly retorted, I won't thank you one bit. People say evil witches should be punished. MHM. Hazel turned her head away and threatened, making the two children turn pale with fear. MHM. That's right. So naughty children should be punished too, shouldn't they? Luna, pale, hugged Luca. We weren't naughty. Hazel glared and asked, so you're saying you don't feel any remorse? She picked up a fork and said in a spooky voice, making the two sob in fear, then you deserve to be punished. While playing the villain, she was reassuring herself, they're so adorable, I should stop teasing them. They look just like little squirrels. Calm down. The two cowered, screaming internally. So scary. Hazel raised the fork and threatened. Then, choose one of you two to be punished. Now, the first option is to become my meal for today. Then she conjured a plate of pastries and said enthusiastically, or spend some time eating pastries with me. The two children's eyes lit up. Luna immediately frowned and shouted, do you think I'd be so easily tempted by that? Hearing the little boy's stomach rumble, she made an offer, because I've already prepared it. Go wash your hands and come eat with me. Hazel watched them with a stern expression, but was actually holding back a smile as she found the two children increasingly adorable. The two children obediently sat at the table and began to enjoy the delicious treats. Thank you for the meal. Hazel took out a slice of cake and placed it in front of the two children. This is the carrot cake I baked. Luna looked disappointed and said, carrots? I don't want any. Luca also put on a sad face, saying, I don't like carrots either. Saying that, she cast a spell on a cookie. Really? You don't know how delicious carrots are, right, Mr. Ginger? The cookie then went over to have a taste. It was a delicious cookie, but it forgot to offer praise. She put just the right amount of honey, so it tastes exactly like honey. The art of ventriloquism, learned when she was a teacher. The two children stared wide-eyed and exclaimed in amazement, "Oh my gosh." With that, the two children scrambled to eat. "I'll eat it. I want to eat too." Seeing the two children happily eating the cake, Hazel said cheerfully, "Slow down. You too." Hazel then asked, "By the way, what are your names?" The little girl replied while chewing on the cake, "I'm Luna." "And he's Luca. The carrots are really sweet." Hazel asked again, curious. "Those are beautiful names. So how old are you?" Luna answered politely, "I'm 7 years old." "He's 5 years old." She continued to ask, "Are you siblings?" The little girl replied, "Yes, we are." She felt a little disappointed inside. "So they're not Hansel and Gretel?" Outwardly, Hazel smiled cheerfully. "You two seem so good together. Won't your parents be worried that you're here with me?" The two children suddenly grew pensive and looked at her. "Mom and Dad," Lucas said sorrowfully. She was suddenly horrified to hear it. The two children stammered, "Abandoned us." The half-eaten cake sat amidst the sad atmosphere. A paper flower appeared. Hazel's memories from her past life suddenly flooded back. She was excitedly folding a flower under her teacher's guidance. Everyone, the theme for today's origami practice is the carnation. Make sure you go home and get it to your parents, okay? Hazel ran home excitedly. "Mom will be so happy." She threw the door open and called out loudly, "Mom." Suddenly, her face fell. On the table lay a letter with a few bills. "I'm sorry. I've left a little money you can use. If you need anything, I'll come back for you later. So be good and listen to your father, okay?" She collapsed under the table, tears falling onto the carpet. But in the end, Dad left home too. Back in the present, she saw the two smiling children and thought to herself without realizing, these children, too. Hazel looked at them, left behind just like she was. Seeing the two well-behaved children in front of her made her wonder even more. Really, why would such adorable children be abandoned? Could they really be Hansel and Gretel? Perhaps they have to destroy me for this story to end. No way. She waved her hand in the air and thought to herself, I want a truly warm and hopeful ending, not a cruel fairy tale. That's right, I've decided on my role. One day, until these children's parents realize their mistake and come here to find them, I will take care of them. She brought out a tray of cookies and said cheerfully, "Here, try these cookies I made myself." To become a kind witch. A kind Hazel. Luna chewed on a cookie and called out, but Miss Witch, Hazel immediately cut her off. It's Hazel. The little girl corrected herself. Miss Hazel. About this, Luna asked fearfully, "Are you feeding us so you can fatten us up and then eat us? Right?" Hazel froze on the spot. Seeing the cookies dancing and singing, Luna screamed, "These cookies are baked with human flesh." Luca looked down at his hands and started to sob. "Did you shrink them down like this and then bake them?" Hazel rushed over to the two kids. Now, if you're done eating, then let's go get washed up." Luna, watching from behind, asked in horror, "Are you planning to eat us after washing us clean?" Hazel immediately turned back to object. "No," Hazel explained helplessly. "Kids, have you ever seen anyone wash a chicken, put clothes on it, and then bake it?" Luna answered, "I've never even seen anyone bake a chicken." Hazel looked at the children, her heart aching. "Oh dear, do they come from such a poor family? I should cook chicken tomorrow." She bent down to dry Luca's hair. "Anyway, I'm going to clean the house, so you two go play with the kitty and the puppy, okay?" With that, she used her magic on the two pets. Hazel hummed as she used magic to clean the house. Luca curiously glanced over at her. Night fell quickly. Luna was sound asleep, but Luca's eyes were still open. The little boy called out softly, "Sis." He whispered in Luna's ear about the witch. Luca asked shyly, "She's not scary at all, is she, sis?" Hazel was standing outside, about to knock and enter. She was happy to hear the two children talking about her. "That people-eating witch? I'll stay up all night, so she won't eat us." Hazel immediately pushed the door open, poked her head in, and said, "You have to sleep well to grow tall. I'm too full from eating people already, so just relax and go to sleep." After teasing the two, she left gleefully amidst their screams. As Hazel walked away, she thought happily to herself, her mind was filled with happiness because of the two children. Have been really lonely for so long. It feels so good that they're here. The next morning at the sweet candy house, Luna's face suddenly went pale. The little girl lifted the blanket and said, "I wet the bed. Luca." The little boy sobbed, "What should I do?" If the witch gets angry, we'll be. Luna immediately soothed him. First, I'll go check if the witch is awake yet. You stay here. Everything from the living room to the kitchen was neatly arranged. Luna walked cautiously and quietly, thinking to herself, what's this? She's not here. Should I take this chance to escape? Suddenly, the little girl was startled and turned to look. Luna stood dumbfounded, looking out the window. It was Miss Hazel. Seeing her peeking and observing from her hiding spot, the little girl grew curious. She's outside, but what is she doing? The little girl poked her small head out to look through the window pane. Is she hiding from them? Finally, I can see who she really is. Hazel quietly observed from behind a tree. She wondered curiously what they're talking about. They seem to have been chatting for a long time. Two girls were whispering. Hey, have you heard about this? The blonde girl with a sly expression leaned in close and whispered about that Grand Duke who went mad. Hazel, behind the tree trunk, overheard. The Grand Duke. In this empire, there's only one Grand Duke. Grand Duke Luke L. Lostben. Hazel wondered to herself if this picture was accurate. The man who inherited the title of Grand Duke at a very young age, succeeding his parents who had passed away early. Thanks to his outstanding abilities, the Grand Duchy continued to develop unaffected by war. Hazel thought to herself, how could such a talented man end up like that? Suddenly, a loud scream made her jump. Hey, over there! Isn't that the evil witch? The blonde girl hurriedly pulled her friend and shouted, behind that tree over there, it looks so suspicious. Quick, let's run. Miss Hazel held out her hand and tried to explain herself. No, I'm not evil. Please don't believe the rumors. Please, just listen to my story. Luna, who was inside, witnessed the whole thing. Hazel was speechless and helpless. Hearing someone call her name, she turned around. Miss Hazel. Luna mustered all her courage, stepped out, and said, Luca had an accident in bed. Hearing the little girl say this, she was a bit surprised. We need you, Miss Hazel. Luna shyly made her request. Can you please help us? Luca lifted the blanket, sobbed, and asked, the bed is wet, so why are you still lazing around in it? Hazel was surprised by the boy and wondered to herself, why would he say that? Did he have a nightmare? She stroked Luca's head and conjured a water spirit. Last night, a water fairy cast a spell that made a lake on the bed and then forgot about it. That's all. She gently bent down and kindly asked the boy, Luca, did the change in sleeping arrangements scare you? The little boy stammered, it's just because Ruru isn't here. Hazel asked, puzzled Ruru. The boy answered in a fluster, my stuffed rabbit. I can't find him anymore. Luna, standing beside him, said, you probably left him somewhere. Luna continued, he's just a stuffed animal. You must have left him at home. Hazel asked curiously, where's your home? Let me get him for you. Hazel's magic was the ability to teleport an item from its location to her current position. Hearing this, Lucas said delightedly, really? Our house is over there. Luna quickly covered his mouth with her hand and said sharply, we don't have a home. Hazel stared wide-eyed at the two children. No home. Luna flared up, our house burned to the ground. Why else would we be here? Something fell out. Luca followed her as she went to hang the laundry, asking incessantly, aren't you angry? Aren't you going to eat us? Hazel turned and replied gently, later, I'm going into the forest to pick mushrooms. I'm not going to eat you. The little boy's face brightened. Really? Mushrooms? Suddenly, Luca's face turned green. Mushrooms. Their taste is disgusting. I hate them. Hazel gripped the blanket, trembling with irritation. Good grief. Is this body really that of a people-eating witch? I really want to take a bite out of this kid right now. She turned back and said to the two kids, the laundry's hung. Let's go. In a flash, the three of them were at a small forest. Hazel led the way. The forest is dangerous. You too. Make sure to hold hands and follow me. Luna asked innocently, you're not taking us to be sacrificed to the forest god, are you? Hazel replied, displeased, what are you talking about? She pointed ahead and said, we'll just pick 10 mushrooms. The two kids held out their hands and asked, how many is 10? Hazel answered cheerfully, it's both of your hands put together. Lucas sat down and watched intently. I've never seen mushrooms grow before. I thought they were some kind of wild fruit. Luna, sitting beside him, said quietly, that's because we were locked up in a house. Locked up in a house? She was a bit stunned. Is there some hidden story here? For such smart, bright children. Hazel quietly clenched her hand. Living in a place with fields and farms like this, and yet they don't even know how plants grow. No wonder their table manners are so strict. Confinement is abuse. Children need to be able to learn, even if their parents come looking for them. I'm not giving them back. Hazel called out cheerfully, hey kids, do you want to go play in the village tomorrow? The two children looked at her excitedly and said in unison, we do. Or use magic for the kids to see, buy delicious food, watch street circus performances, and buy beautiful clothes too. The two children exclaimed in amazement, oh wow. She smiled happily and said, all the things we couldn't do when we were locked up at home now. We'll do them. Lucas suddenly said, I wish he could have come with us. Hazel asked in surprise. Luna, standing beside him, raised her hand and whispered, hey, why did you say that? What if we get sent back home? Hearing this, Hazel whispered to herself, so the story about the house burning down was a lie. Luca whispered back, but you and I were cooped up, sister. Luna was annoyed. Why do you keep wanting to see the person who abandoned us? Hazel thought sadly to herself, just how difficult is their situation. For children this young to be abandoned is truly heartbreaking. For now, I just need to think about the children. Arriving in town, Hazel placed her hands on the two kids' shoulders and asked excitedly, where do you want to go first? Let's go look at clothes. She led the two children, looking around. Let's see where the clothes sold. Ah, over there. Arriving in front of a tailor shop, the two women's eyes widened in surprise. Is that her? Hazel looked at them awkwardly. A witch in a clothing store. It really is surprising, come to think of it. She thought to herself, witches know how to sew their own clothes. Little fairies usually make their own shoes, but she bit her lip. Now I have to look after these children too. If I want to get what I need, it's best to get used to the villagers first. Hazel forced a smile. Hello, could we see some clothes and shoes for children? She held up a money pouch and said, price is not an issue. The two shopkeepers looked surprised. For kids? The blonde woman turned and whispered to the other, could those kids be kidnapped? Isn't it dangerous for us to be standing here? The dark-haired woman replied, she has money and power. Just sell it to them quickly, so they leave. If we wait too long, what if she gets angry and turns us into frogs? Luna glared at them unhappily. The little girl crossed her arms and shouted, you two are making me mad. How can you run a business and talk about customers so rudely? Hazel quickly apologized. These kids are just playing a princess game. That's why they're talking like that. Luna angrily pulled her hand. Let's go, sister. Hazel called out in surprise, Luna. The little girl said angrily to her brother, we don't have to be polite to them, do we? She felt helpless. Even if I teach the kids to speak politely, they won't listen. Suddenly, a gentle voice called out to her, come here, children. A kind old woman spoke up. Let me show you some things. Her daughter's voice tried to stop her. Mother, don't go near them. It's dangerous. The old woman said in a soft voice, it's fine, it's fine. The old woman leaned on her cane as she walked toward the three of them and said, these children are so neat and rosy-cheeked. How could they be bad people? Hazel said shyly, thank you very much, ma'am. The old woman touched each piece of fabric. Let's see now. This little girl's hair looks like the night sky. Luna stared wide-eyed as the old woman carefully selected each outfit. The old woman suddenly asked, are your eyes purple? She immediately smiled excitedly and said, yes, they're very beautiful, ma'am. Maybe the little girl has some royal blood. Hazel then said, this is for wearing outside, and this is for sleeping. Oh, these outfits would look so good on Luca. Oh my, we'll take them all. The sound of footsteps heading for the door, along with goodbyes. The two kids who bought things with her said excitedly, thank you, Sister Hazel. But isn't it too expensive for you to buy all this? How do witches make money? Hazel made an excuse, well, by selling jam and mushrooms. A lie. Who would dare buy such things from a witch? The truth is, I'm a rich woman. In the basement of the wooden house in the forest where I woke up, there was a massive pile of gold coins. But I didn't take it because it wasn't my money, so I just left. Hazel rested her chin on her hand, thinking, but now there are more mouths to feed in the house. I need more money. From behind, a conversation reached her ears. Hey, have you heard about the Grand Duke's huge reward? The girl next to her asked curiously, what's it about? Her eyes lit up like car headlights. Suddenly, the two children standing nearby froze at the words. The Grand Duke's son and daughter have been kidnapped. Hazel, standing nearby, also heard some whispers. She was horrified and asked herself, oh my, kidnapped? The situation is that serious? Could I use my magic to help find them? Hazel called out to the two gossiping women. You two, do you know what the two children look like? Suddenly, a shout made her turn to look at Luna. The little girl pointed at a rabbit on a shelf and said, look, he looks just like Ruru. Hazel put her hand on Luca's shoulder and said excitedly, really? That's great, Luca. Ah, does he look like Ruru? The little boy whimpered. There's only one Ruru. That's not Ruru. Seeing the little boy seemed sad. Hazel spoke to comfort him. Is that so? Luna, what do you think about? Suddenly, she couldn't see Luna anywhere. The two of them stood dumbfounded, wondering, where did Luna go? Hazel worriedly called out the little girl's name. Luna. She grabbed Luca's hand and pulled him along in a panic. It can't be. Would someone dare to snatch a child from a witch? The two of them ran with all their might. But recently, the Grand Duke. Suddenly, she saw a familiar figure. She stopped to confirm. Seeing the little girl standing in a corner, Hazel cried out, "Luna, there you are." Seeing the little girl standing shakily on a cardboard box, she asked, "What are you doing?" That is, seeing the little girl tear down a piece of paper, she wondered to herself, a wanted poster? Hazel asked, "Luna, why are you tearing up those papers?" Luna replied, "I wanted to draw but couldn't find any paper, so I tore this paper, sister." Yes. Hazel frowned at the little girl. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? Next time you want to do something, you have to tell me. You hear?" The little girl stammered, "Yes, I'm sorry." Yes. She took Luna's hand. "Now let's go buy paper and crayons." Luna obediently followed. Yes. Back at the fair, Hazel anxiously overheard some rumors. They've been kidnapped for a while now. I wonder if they're still alive. Hazel thought uncomfortably to herself, "Everywhere I go, I hear people talking about the Grand Duke. I wonder when the Grand Duke got married." She pondered deeply. So the rumor that the Grand Duke is crazy started from this. If they haven't been married long, their children must still be very young. It's so confusing. Evening fell, but the rumors didn't die down. They kidnapped the royal children? I heard the Grand Duke is very worried now. To be honest, seeing the girls fawning over the Grand Duke made her fall to the ground. I want to see for myself right now. Every flowery, suggestive compliment from the girl's lips. He always has such a fierce gaze. Hazel held her head and thought to herself, that's right. The Grand Duke is famous for being handsome and so cool. And everyone described him exactly the same way. Platinum hair, as if meticulously woven from 10,000 threads of moonlight. Deep purple eyes, made from the most exquisite amethysts. A beauty that no sculptor could ever carve. A weak figure touched the picture in front of him. The man held a bear in his hand with a scowling face. "Hey," holding the stuffed rabbit in his hand. The man asked, "What do you think?" He looked sadly at the stuffed rabbit and said, "Huh, Ruru?" Remembering, he asked sadly, "Where do you think your owner is?" He hugged the stuffed rabbit tightly. Without Ruru by his side, the boy will surely have nightmares. If anything happens to Luna and Luca, His hand trembled. As he held the stuffed rabbit, a voice called out, "Your Grace, the Grand Duke." The door burst open with the sound of a servant's ragged breathing. "We just received a report," Daniel shouted. "A clothing stall in a village near the Black Forest. There are 2 children who look exactly like the 2 of them." Hearing him, he froze. They must be Luna and Luca. It's them. Hazel held a loaf of bread in her hand and happily asked the 2 children, "Are we ready to go?" The people in town whispered to each other, "She's a witch." Evening fell at the candy house. Hazel sat on the chair and stretched wearily. Today was so much fun. Tomorrow, I'll cook with the kids using the ingredients we bought today. She mentally arranged the schedule for tomorrow. Draw pictures with Luna and Luca. The day is long, but the night is too short. Suddenly, she was startled. Luca slowly pushed the door open and entered. Seeing the little boy climb in her lap, she asked curiously, "Oh, why aren't you sleeping?" The little boy whined, "I'm scared." She hugged the little boy and said softly, "Luna is here too." With Luca in her lap, he whined, "Luna's asleep." From behind, Luna's voice said, "I'm not asleep either." The little girl quickly climbed onto the sofa. "It's too disrespectful to let you sleep on the sofa like that, sister." Hazel smiled happily. She patted the kid's head and praised her. "You're so mature." Looking at the little girl, a thought suddenly came to her. Luna must have had a hard time taking care of her brother. If it were me, a kid with no roof over my head, a few windows with faint light, no food or adults by my side, as flowers bloomed one after another, I would probably just cry. Luna suddenly put on a sad face. The world outside is scarier than I thought. Hazel hugged the 2 kids and said gently, "I'm so glad you 2 have held on until now." The fireplace burned brightly, along with Hazel's warm words. "From now on, I will take care of you too, so you can live the life of a 7-year-old child." Luna asked vaguely, "Sister Hazel, can we stay here with you forever?" She was suddenly surprised. Hazel hugged the 2 of them tightly and replied with satisfaction, "Of course you can. I want to live with you kids." Hazel looked outside and smiled happily. "Oh, Moon, please let the 3 of us live happily together." The starry sky cast a gentle light over the forest. The parents of these 2 children. Suddenly, the sound of horse hooves galloped through the forest. "I hope that person never comes looking for them." He rode coldly on his horse. Morning at the candy house. Hazel sat up and stretched. "Oh, my back hurts." Hearing a noise, she woke up instantly. Who's knocking on the door at this hour? The knocking was persistent. Hazel got annoyed. All right, wait a moment." She went a peek through the door. A sword was suddenly pointed straight at her neck, terrifying her to the core. Luke coldly called her a witch. He coldly declared her crime. The kidnapper will be executed. The 2 children heard the noise and ran out, asking, What's wrong, sister? Hazel glanced worriedly at them. They're awake. I can't let them see a scene like this. Is this guy crazy? Trembling, Hazel tried to force a smile and said, "You're the children's father, aren't you? Kidnapping? It's just a misunderstanding. Please calm down, sir." Luna shouted, "Brother, don't." Hazel was surprised by the little girl's words. Not their father, but their older brother. An attendant approached the two children and said, "Young master, young lady, please come this way." She froze on the spot when she heard the children's identities. The Grand Duke? Luke's sharp, cold eyes stared at her. The crest on the sword also showed his authority. Looking at Luke before her, she couldn't help but praise him inwardly. So this person is the Grand Duke? Seeing her shake her head for no apparent reason made him a little wary. Hazel thought to herself, he's actually quite handsome. No, this isn't the time to be thinking about such things. Looking at the two children in front of her, she understood in her heart. So Luna and Luca are the missing children? She recalled how Luca was surprised when they were picking mushrooms. At the sight of a mushroom, that I've never seen mushrooms grow before. I thought they were wild fruits. And Luna had said, that's because we were locked up in the house. Thanks to that, she also remembered Luna whispering to Luca, what if we get caught and taken back home? She thought, so the story about their house burning down was all a lie. The pile of questions now melted away like frost, because they were nobles. Standing before these powerful people, she blamed herself. I really made a mistake. The two children hugged Luke's legs, wailing loudly, "If you dare execute her, we'll go on a hunger strike." A hunger strike for life. Seeing his younger siblings say this, Luke could only relent, saying, "Then I'll just banish her." The two continued to set conditions. "If you do that, I won't eat carrots anymore." Luke immediately replied, "You two never eat carrots anyway." The two hugged Luke's legs and shouted, "We eat them now. Sister Hazel told us to eat them." He froze on the spot as Luke slowly lowered his sword. So that meant, looking at the sweet carrot cake before him, his face turned cold again. He held a dagger close to her neck. "Hazel, what on earth have you done to my siblings?" She looked at him and replied, "What do you mean?" "I just taught the little ones not to be picky eaters." Seeing that the attendants had secured his two siblings, Luke's voice became threatening. "We are in front of the children now. You'd better get rid of all your dark magic. That is something countless people have spent years trying and failing to accomplish." The attendants behind him added fuel to the fire. Maybe she brainwashed them. I heard witches often use dark magic. Her heart burned with indignation. Not a single word was wrong, and yet they didn't care about brandishing a sword in front of children. Hazel slowly raised her hand, thinking to herself, but I have to dodge this sword first. I'll turn you into a chicken. When she touched the sword, a bolt of lightning emanated from it, making her uncomfortable. This feeling, holy power. She looked around cautiously, but I don't see any holy knights here. Luke shouted in her face, asking, "What trick did you pull?" Startled, she shouted back, "Don't. You shouldn't yell in front of children. You'll scare them." Luca immediately burst into tears, calling her name. Sister Hazel. Her eyes also welled up with tears, but she didn't dare to call out, only calling silently in her heart. "Luca." Grabbing a wooden fork, she said, "If you want to know that badly, then I will gladly demonstrate for you." Seeing the piece of cake floating towards him, Luke asked something. Hazel focused and said, "Don't worry. What can a witch do with just a fork?" Two wooden forks were neatly stuck into the piece of cake. Hazel cut a piece of the cake and offered it to him. "This is the carrot cake I made." She asked him, would the Grand Duke like to try a piece? Luke, his face still cold, looked at her. He turned and pointed to the cake, ordering his subordinate, Daniel, take this piece of cake. Then call for a mage. After hearing this, the man bowed respectfully and obeyed. Seeing him blatantly slander her, Hazel's face turned pale. "Oh, you mixed poison into the cake and plotted to turn me and my siblings into puppets." Recalling the memory of making the cake together, her heart ached. "That cake was personally made by me and the two children." Luke turned and ordered, "Let's go home. Luna, Luca." Hazel shouted, "You are also the one at fault." Hearing her words, he seemed not to believe it. "They said you locked them up and mistreated them." Luke sullenly bowed his head, looking at the two kids and wondering, mistreated? He led the two children outside to prepare the carriage. Suddenly, a shout was heard along with the sound of a door slamming shut. "You're not going anywhere." Hazel gathered her courage, pointed at the cold man, and declared boldly, "If you take the children away, I won't let it go." "You're just going to lock them up again, aren't you?" Luke glared and ordered, "Open it." The attendants tried to break the lock with an axe, but failed. "Sir, we're using an axe to chop it, but the door won't budge." Luke asked who locked the door. She cast a spell and set a condition. promise me. Hazel, annoyed, used her magic. And the children, that you will take care of them properly and kindly. He sighed and sneered, a man-eating witch. The door opened. Luke covered his murderous eyes with his hand, a smirk on his lips as he asked, "Dares to talk about taking care of others?" He advanced towards her and said, "Once I find evidence, I will execute you immediately." The two kids started making a fuss, and Sister Hazel doesn't eat people. We can't eat mushrooms together. Luna grabbed his shirt tightly and said loudly, "That's right. Sister Hazel should come with us too." Luca cried, "I want her to be our nanny." The two making a fuss made her a little embarrassed. "If Sister Hazel doesn't go, we won't go home either." Hazel knelt down and said softly, "Luna, and Luca too, you two should go home." Hearing Hazel say this, the two kids' tears and snot started flowing everywhere, that I'll write letters to you. If there are any words you don't know, remember to ask someone else to help you read them. Luke picked up the two kids and asked with a glare, "Are you controlling my siblings?" With that, he walked away. "There's no reason for you to exist anymore." The group boarded the carriage outside the candy house. Sitting in the carriage, Luca whimpered, "Sister Hazel." Outside, Hazel banged on the door, shouting, "Excuse me." She banged on the door and shouted, "Wait a moment." Luke, sitting in the carriage, looked at her with annoyance. He reluctantly got out of the carriage. "What is it? Stay in the carriage." Hazel came up to him, holding a pile of toys, and said shyly, "These belong to the kids." Luke frowned in annoyance at her words. "Take them back." He turned his face away and said, "A witch's strange items. At the Grand Duke's residence, they must use the best things. Although these toys aren't as fancy as what the kids have, they made them very happy." Luke turned his head back inside and said no more. From inside, a voice called out, "Brother." Luna shouted from inside the carriage, "Promise us you won't kill Sister Hazel." Luca also sobbed and said, "Hurry up and take the things." Luke sighed helplessly. Hazel's eyes lit up, moved by the two children. Luke replied helplessly, "I know. It's dangerous. You two get back inside." The two replied in unison, "Say goodbye and thank her for taking care of us." The older brother walked towards the two kids, feeling helpless. "What do you mean?" The two immediately retorted, "You always tell us not to forget to say our greetings." Luke sighed, speechless. He bowed politely and said, "You have taken care of my two siblings. I thank you." Hazel was stunned, but she was immediately threatened by him in a low voice. "But," Luke glared threateningly, "they have definitely been controlled by you." Hazel looked on, disappointed. Luke turned and ordered, "Load her things onto the carriage." The attendant heard the order and replied, "Yes, sir." Sister Hazel watched helplessly as the group departed. She gently raised her hand to wave goodbye. "Take care." Her hand trembled slightly. "Thank you so much. I thought we could live together. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you too." Daisy, seeing her looking sad, came forward. "Sister Hazel, you promised to cook the stew they like tonight. You also promised to start raising rabbits from tomorrow. They made my lonely life no longer dull. I didn't even get to thank them properly. To those two, I'm sorry." Suddenly, a drop of water fell on Larry's head. He looked up and asked, "Hazel, are you okay?" She sobbed, "I'm fine. I'll be fine." Hazel sat down, stroking the cat's head and reassuring the dog that, "If I'm worried about the children, I'll just ask you two to go there and check on them." Just like how the children appeared in my life, they left without a word of goodbye. 5 p.m., clear skies. The Grand Duke's residence. Checking to see if the carriage's owner was being lazy. Inside, a handsome man was flirting with a maid. "Hey miss, are you free?" A little girl holding binoculars observed intently and said, 20 minutes have passed. The plan is still going smoothly." The kid below, with his face covered, hugged a stuffed rabbit and said, "Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Luna shouted forward as she ran. The little boy ran behind, hugging the rabbit, but he tripped and fell flat on his face. The little girl struggled to pull her younger brother onto the carriage. "Can you even survive? Climb up quickly, or we'll be discovered." Luna panicked a little when she saw someone walking towards the carriage. The two kids immediately hid in a corner. "Are you done?" Seeing the carriage start to move, the two whispered to each other, "The carriage is moving." Luna said happily, "We succeeded." The little boy hugging the stuffed rabbit said, "Really? Yay. We're going to see Sister Hazel soon." Luke suddenly pulled back the curtain and said sternly, "You're not going anywhere." The two children's eyes widened. Luna shouted, "How can this be?" Luke thought with a headache. After all, they're just kids. Did they think everyone would be fooled by the exact same trick as last time? In the great hall, when he carried the two children in, the maid was terrified. "Oh my goodness, Your Grace, the Grand Duke, we are so sorry. We should have watched them more strictly," he ordered with a stern face. "Don't let any stray cats sneak in." As Daisy had been caught while spying, he also gave a stern order to all his attendants. from now on, strictly inspect all luggage leaving the residence. Luke specifically singled out Daniel, instructing the kitchen to prepare a meal and to inspect every single ingredient. The boy bowed to accept the order. Yes. At the dining table, Luke said, "Dinner is all dishes that you two like to eat." He rested his hand on the table and said sternly, "So stop this hunger strike nonsense. Do you two know how many days it's been since we left that place?" As agreed, I will not kill the witch. Luca pouted and demanded, "Then give me chocolate." Luke angrily shouted, "No, I already gave you two a few pieces this week." The two kids wailed, "I don't care. I'm not going to eat." He held his face, crying internally. Why are these two's childish games so hard to deal with? Or is this a royal conspiracy? There was a hint of sadness in his eyes. Why don't the two of them understand? Putting down his cutlery, he felt a bit of remorse. The reason I'm being so strict with you two is... Harrow held a pitcher and introduced, "This is juice from the strawberries we harvested today." The two children's eyes lit up with excitement. He thought to himself, because if anything were to happen to you two, water was poured slowly from the pitcher. It spread as fast as poison. Harrow carried a cup of tea and asked, "So, Your Grace, the Grand Duke, may I bring that dish up now?" Luke rested his chin on his hand and nodded. "Ah, yes." The man turned pale and thought to himself, "Really? They like that dish." Bringing the dish up, he wondered to himself, "Are you going to fire me like the other nannies?" No, I heard they ate food cooked by that witch. The Grand Duke's chef has his pride, too. Seeing the two kids' jaws drop in astonishment, he thought to himself even more, "I can't lose to that witch like this." The two were terrified. This is beef and carrot stew cooked by the Grand Duchy's chef. Harrow and the maids looked inside curiously and whispered amongst themselves, "You put carrots in it. Were we not supposed to do anything related to carrots?" Harrow looked around worriedly. "I don't want to be compared to that cunning witch like this." Lucas slowly brought a spoonful of soup up to taste it. He looked on in astonishment. The sound of birds outside was also startled. Luke and the servants in the house were just as startled. A bolt of lightning struck the mansion at the sight of the two kids chewing and grinding away, even eating the carrots first. Harrow's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Oh my God, so I don't have to worry about being fired." Luna covered her mouth with her hand and showed a look of disgust. "Why are the carrots so bitter?" Luke's face turned pale as he said, "Luna Bella Blen, speak with more refinement." The little girl argued back, "Ugh, this carrot still has mud on it." Luca, sitting behind her, also spat out the piece of carrot in his mouth. Luke said in a low, threatening voice, "Don't spit it out." Luna spoke up, correcting Harrow's cooking method. "You need to dice the carrots and stew them until they're tender." Luca whined, "But we want to eat Sister Hazel's carrot cake now." Luke looked at the little boy and said, "Luca, it's been over 10 days since we brought it back." Hearing him say that, the little boy looked disappointed. A cake left out for that long would have gone bad. Luna stood up and pulled the little boy's hand. "Luca, let's go." The two stood up and quickly left. Luke shouted angrily, "Hey, you two haven't finished eating," ignoring his words. The two quickly disappeared from his sight. The sound of the pouring rain cast a sad gloom over the entire mansion. In Luna's room, Luke stood with his arms crossed and said, "You two were very rude today, so there will be no dinner for you tonight." Luna replied with annoyance, "It doesn't matter." Lucas suddenly frowned, annoyed by Luke's words. "Is that so? Then you probably won't get to eat chocolate for a whole month either." Luna stubbornly shouted back, "We don't need chocolate either." Luca hugged his stuffed rabbit and asked softly, "We really don't need it?" The little girl stubbornly shouted, "Give us back our nanny." Luke snapped back in annoyance. "You two were the ones who drove her away." A talented woman from a distant land of the Empire. She just wanted to be able to raise even the most stubborn children before she retired. A few days earlier, Luke had received a letter of resignation. "Your Grace, the Grand Duke, this has truly been a wonderful time in my capacity as a nanny." Luna shouted, "The person I'm talking about is Sister Hazel, not that nanny." Luke asked curiously, "What on earth did that witch do to you two? You two used to hate nannies more than enemies." Lucas stood up and demonstrated in front of Luke. "She pats my back like this." Luke asked, "And did she hit it?" Luna replied, "No, and Sister Hazel doesn't nag us like you do." Luke felt a pang of jealousy. They're even comparing that witch to their own brother? He said with visible annoyance, "But Hazel lured you too with a house of candy." "I wouldn't do that." Luna shouted angrily, "How dare you say that about Sister Hazel?" The little girl pointed straight at his face and said, "Look, have we lost any weight? Did Sister Hazel eat any of it?" Luke said, exasperated, "Luna, you're really something." A small hand grabbed Luke's sleeve and called softly, "Brother." Luca looked at him whiningly and pleaded, "I want to go to Sister Hazel's place. You come with us, okay?" Luke looked at the little boy with sad eyes. He closed his eyes and refused the plea. "No, never. Luna jumped up and reproached, No, no, no. It's always no. When have you ever let us do what we want? A voice called from outside, Your Grace. Are you in there? It's Daniel. Luke felt a little hurt. Luke stood rooted to the spot. I can't live just doing what I want either. Outside, the attendant continued. A letter has arrived from the royal family, Your Grace. He stammered, I'll be right there. A shout echoed out. Luna shouted angrily, Go away like last time. Luke walked away with a heavy heart. Like last time? Ah, you mean going on an expedition again. Even when I left that time, I was always thinking of you too. As he walked, his heart grew heavier with thoughts. My parents also knew. Luke told himself that he was the eldest son. My two siblings are still too young. As the head of the duchy, only I can protect you too. He looked out pensively. But no matter how much I try to be a respectable man, sometimes the burden weighs heavily on my shoulders. A few days later, watching the rain fall, she thought to herself, it's so lonely. Then she smiled and said to Larry D and Dashi, it's raining so heavily today, too. Dashi jumped on her and asked, Sister Hazel, when are those two kids coming? She replied, you always act like you're bothered, but I didn't expect you to care about the two kids as well. Attachment is a scary thing. She thought, actually a few days ago, I sent Daisy to the duchy. The space inside was incredibly vast and filled with food. But most importantly, the two kids were still healthy. After calming down, I soothed myself with a carrot cake that I used to love so much. That's when I realized I wouldn't be able to eat carrots anymore. Yes, Dashi said, you should adopt them. How can a witch adopt children? And even if I could, people would just point and gossip. Just then, there was a knock on the door. She stood up, wondering, why have there been so many visitors lately? Yes, I'm coming. Larry D said, tell him, Sister Hazel. You have to make him get on his knees and beg you. Hearing that, she turned and asked, what are you talking about? Before she could finish her sentence, Hazel's face went pale and she was speechless. Before her was the Grand Duke. A few days ago, in Luke's study was an order from the Emperor. Your Majesty, Daniel reported to him. We look forward to your brave contributions once again. Luke pensively read the order from the Emperor. He was trembling with anger. That Emperor, he crumpled the paper into a ball. He threw it on the ground. Seeing this, Daniel spoke up. Your Grace just returned from the expedition less than a month ago. Luke covered his face and sighed. I know. How many times has this happened this year? Perhaps surviving each time is the real problem. Luke rested his forehead in his hand and closed his eyes tiredly. If I leave the ducal territory again, what will happen to my own siblings? Daniel placed a document on the table. He said, and one more thing, Your Grace. This is the report. The report on the cake from the alchemist pharmacist's house, as you requested. Luke silently flipped through it, a faint smile on his face. Daniel asked, did they find anything, Your Grace? Luke shook his head. No, they said it was a normal and very delicious cake. It's a relief that it didn't harm the children. Then he suddenly rested his chin on his hand, deep in thought. It's a relief indeed, but was it really just a cake? Daniel said seriously, no way, Your Grace. The witch must have used some special magic that no one knows about. Luke looked up at him. Didn't they say they didn't detect anything? Daniel replied, I couldn't find anything either, Your Grace. He replied, that's true, but Luke thought, but it's still horribly suspicious. A wicked witch being so considerate to children while expecting nothing in return. Daniel raised a doubt. Does she really want nothing, Your Grace? There are rumors that she bakes cakes with human flesh. She's known for turning villagers into frogs just because she didn't like the way they looked at her. And she also turned all the grapes at the Autumn Wine Festival into sewer rats. It's not worth mentioning without proof, but wasn't there a time when a witch who wasn't on good terms with her died mysteriously? What? And a few days ago, didn't she completely change her appearance, Your Grace? Luke agreed. That's right. And ever since her appearance changed, all the evil deeds have stopped. It's suspicious. Luke continued to look troubled, tapping his fingers on the table. He thought, I only have 1 week left before the expedition. You should bring Hazel here instead of the nanny. That's what Luna had shouted at Luke. His fingers rested on the table as if he had finished thinking. He spoke up. Sir Daniel, you used to be a holy knight, didn't you? His completely unexpected question made Daniel's eyes widen. The man froze as if he were cast in concrete. Sweat trickled down Daniel's head. He timidly replied, yes. Hearing that, Luke immediately broke into a sinister smile. Back to the present. It was raining cats and dogs. Luke stood on the steps, facing Hazel. He ran a hand through his wet hair. Hazel timidly asked, why are you here, Your Grace? At the same time, she silently hoped. Did he bring the 2 little peanuts with him? Of course not. There's only 1 horse. Hiding his feet, Luke quietly observed her, silently wondering. What is she standing there thinking about so pensively? Leaning closer, he said, "Miss Hazel, could you spare me a moment?" Hazel's inner thoughts silently protested. Why is he getting so close? He really startled me. He insulted me, and now he's calling me Miss Hazel? Thinking this, she clenched her fists. Did he come here to ask for my help with something? He probably wants me to use some forbidden magic for his own purposes. With that thought, she turned to go inside and snapped, "I'm busy." She angrily said to her cat dog, "What is it? Let's get ready to go pick mushrooms." Luke silently wondered. Mushrooms? Hazel picked up her basket. She puffed out her cheeks and pouted, thinking, he looks too relaxed, so nothing must have happened to the children. If that's the case, there's no need to talk any further. Larry also silently protested against Luke with his attitude. In the forest, the air was peaceful and fresh. The rain stopped so quickly, Hazel said, shielding her eyes from the sun with her hand. But why is he still following me? She furtively showed a resentful expression. Luke loomed behind her. "Hey, Sister Hazel, that man smells like the children." Daisy bounded forward, her eyes sparkling as she happily wagged her tail. Hazel quickly stopped her. "Don't wag your tail. He's a bad person, and don't act like a puppy in front of other people. What if they find out?" Larry interrupted her. "Talking to yourself like that makes you look even more suspicious." Hearing that, Hazel let out a long sigh. She turned around. "Why do you keep following me?" He smirked and replied, "I am a busy man. I just want to have a quick word." Hearing this, Hazel felt like she was swallowing her anger. She let out a frustrated, "Ah." "Then why don't you go back? I'm suddenly being scolded. I guess I'm just tired of thinking about him abusing the children. He abandoned them, so what is he plotting now?" Luke trailed behind her. By the way, where are we going?" Hazel replied, "The forest." He continued, "Aren't we already in the forest? So why are we going over there?" Hearing that, Hazel got angry and let out a dissatisfied grunt. "How annoying. I'm leading the noble blood of the Grand Duke deep into the forest to offer you to the Demon Lord." This was accompanied by a dark smile. Luke was stunned. He exclaimed, "What?" Suddenly, Hazel turned and walked away. She let out a sharp breath. That surprised expression is exactly like Luna's. Seeing that, Luke's face darkened and he trembled with anger. How dare she lie to the one who rules this land? Suddenly, Hazel exclaimed, "Oh, I found mushrooms. Phew, there's still a few." Luke suddenly knelt beside her. "Why are you picking them?" Hazel replied, full of suspicion, "To eat, obviously. They're just common, edible webcap mushrooms." Hearing that, Luke smiled and glanced at her. "Are you being cautious because I'm here? Go ahead and pick everything you need." He pointed to a mushroom. That's a death cap. Just one bite is enough to be fatal. Hazel thought angrily. Does he think only witches pick poisonous mushrooms? She said, "If you want to eat it, then please eat a lot, Your Grace, the Grand Duke." Suddenly, she let out a gasp. Daisy shot up the tree. It was heading for a hornet's nest. Hazel yelled, "Daisy, don't mess with the nest." Daisy's white paw reached close to the nest. A few hornets were flying around outside. They seemed to have noticed its chubby white paw. She shouted loudly, "I'm serious. I can't save you." Suddenly, her gaze shifted behind her. "Wait behind me." She was completely stunned. Luke had already drawn his bow, ready to aim. There was a murderous aura. Hazel realized in a panic. "He's going to kill me." Hazel broke out in a cold sweat, terrified. "Why? What did I do to him?" Hazel immediately spun around. Luke also released the bowstring, shooting the arrow. The arrow whizzed forward. On Hazel's finger, strange rays of light simultaneously gathered, forming a dazzling point of light. "I can't take it anymore." Thwack! The sharp arrow plunged straight into a mushroom. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Arrows continuously flew toward the mushrooms. Hazel panted. "I blocked it." Her heart was suddenly bewildered. But something's not right. It feels like the arrows weren't aimed at me." Luke's expression turned strange. Behind Hazel, a giant, furry creature was letting out terrifying breaths. Hazel blinked and saw a bear. Suddenly, the bear charged, attacking them. Both of them immediately scrambled to run away. Hazel ran while looking back worriedly. "Daisy." Luke gritted his teeth and swore, "Damn it. Why did you help that bear? Don't tell me you summoned it." Hearing that, Hazel angrily retorted, "If I had summoned it, would I be running away like this?" Luke drew a dagger and said seriously, "I'll handle this. You get away." Hazel exclaimed, "Daisy is coming." With that, she pointed at the tree. "Take this." Instantly, a stream of light wrapped around it. Plop, plop. The hornet's nest from before fell right onto the bear's head. Hazel playfully stuck out her tongue and gave a thumbs up. Success. Then she panicked. But now is not the time for that. "Daisy, are you hurt anywhere?" A hand landed on her shoulder. Luke, holding Daisy in his hand, said, "Wouldn't you have preferred it if the bear had attacked me?" Hazel felt shy. "He's too close. Suddenly, Luke tossed Daisy back to her. Hazel wondered why. Why would I want someone to die when I've only met them twice? Are these people overly anxious? Like unrealistic people who think the whole world wants to kill them. If he's that crazy, then it makes sense that he locked up his siblings. Luke grabbed her hand and said, "If you don't want me to die, then are you trying to gain my trust? With these hands, you summoned the bear. And with these hands, you took it down." Hazel trembled. "Please." Luke wondered, Disappear. Hazel screamed. A bolt of light, like lightning, struck down from the clear sky. In front of the cave entrance, the rain fell heavily. Luke watched Hazel's back as she, along with Larry and Daisy, went inside. Inside, Hazel took off her raincoat and said, "I don't care about gaining your trust or your virtue. I just want some time alone." Luke leaned against the cave wall, the rain soaking his hair. A drop of water ran down his cheek. "Did you use weather magic?" "Unfortunately, no." Outside, the rain seemed to fall even harder from the gray sky. Hazel thought, "Why is he still following me?" Luke unbuttoned his shirt and ran a hand through his hair. "What are you looking at?" That seductive sight made her blush. Hazel was shyly stunned and let out an ah. Luke, flustered, turned his face away as oh she did change her appearance. Hazel glared at him, wondering what. Come to think of it, Daisy and Larry said that the witch's appearance suddenly changed. It was just a few days before I possessed this body, right after receiving a treasure chest full of gold coins from Strange Man. I think I'm recreating the witch's appearance. Does the Grand Duke know something? She said loudly, "What is your plan?" Luke blushed and turned away. That's none of your business. He pointed at Daisy. But more importantly, what kind of cat likes water this much? She let out a surprised, She threw a towel at Luke's face. She thought, if he finds out, it'll be the end. She stammered, why not? Luke said angrily, his voice low, "What are you doing?" Hazel was not to be outdone. She replied, "Use the towel to dry yourself." She pointed her finger. A stream of light turned into a pile of firewood that burst into flames. She said generously, "Come on, don't just stand there. Come here and dry off. I'm not going to eat you." Hearing that, although Luke was not pleased, he still came closer and plopped down on the ground. He took the towel and dried his head. Hazel yelled with a look of disgust, "You're splashing water everywhere." She silently grumbled in frustration. Seriously, I was briefly wondering if I was wrong about him when he found Daisy. Could someone like that really take care of children? A dagger skewered a mushroom and was held near the fire. Hazel asked blankly, "What are you doing now?" Luke said nonchalantly, "I'm hungry, so I'm going to roast this mushroom." Hazel said, "That's my mushroom." Luke brought the mushroom to his mouth and glanced over. "They grow on my land, so they're mine." Hazel thought silently. "So that's how you want to play, is it? Fine, I'll play my way." Luke looked at her pensively and said, "Most women wouldn't think of attacking a bear, would they?" Hazel was a little stunned. She conjured a beautiful cake in her hand. She said, "I'm a witch." Luke was surprised. "What? Are you eating that by yourself?" "Come on." Hazel asked, "What if I cast a puppet spell on this cake?" Luke glanced at Hazel. "What would you do if you turned me into your puppet?" Hazel let out a surprised "Oh." "Then I would get to visit the Grand Duchy and see the children." Luke glared at her. "Is that all you think about?" Hazel said, "The experiment with the cake is over. There's nothing in it." Luke asked, "How were you able to bribe the children?" Hazel held the plate of cake, looked at him, and snorted with laughter. Hazel held a cake in each hand. She smiled smugly and invited, "Why don't you try a piece yourself?" Luke quickly and neatly finished the cake. Seeing this, Hazel laughed loudly. "It's delicious, isn't it?" Luke smirked. "Should I be thankful that I didn't turn into a frog after eating it?" Hazel glared at him. "I don't do things like that. You did a few years ago," Luke said. "The investigation records are still in the archives." Hearing that, Hazel let out a dissatisfied cry. As he stood up, he said, "Let's get to the main point. I'm curious about many things concerning you, Miss Hazel. People can't change overnight." Hazel and Daisy looked up at him with sparkling eyes. "It's not easy to give up your way of life." Luke looked down from above. "So tell me, why do you suddenly want to become a good witch?" Luke questioned with a scrutinizing gaze, making Hazel feel guilty and scratch her head. Beads of sweat continuously rolled down. She stammered, making up an excuse to get by. Well, a few years ago, I was sick and it made me forget my past. So I thought about it and decided to live a good life from now on." After saying that, Hazel laughed, looking embarrassed, but his eyes darkened as he said firmly, "I don't believe you." Looking into Luke's eyes, she thought to herself, "He's looking at me so intensely." Hazel's train of thought. An image of him appeared with a feeling that was frighteningly cold. Earlier, when I gave him the cake, he skillfully took out his own eating utensils. Does he really think I would poison him? If he's that suspicious, why come alone to meet a witch? A past memory surfaced in Hazel's thoughts. At that time, she was blinded by a dazzling light emanating from the sword. Even last time, he only brought a few knights with him. Thinking back now, I felt a divine power that day. I still haven't found any holy knights, though. Hazel's train of thought was cut off by Luke's words. What are you thinking about so hard? His interrogative question made her retort in annoyance. Did you come here to interrogate me? Looking at the annoyed Hazel, he explained. It's not an interrogation, just a few questions. I'm very curious about the witch about you, Miss Hazel. The fire in the cave was still blazing. Meanwhile, their conversation continued. She asked Luke, and when you're done questioning me, you don't plan on tying me to a stake for execution, right? In response to her question, Luke assured her firmly, no need to worry. I'm here because I have a favor to ask. Looking away with a show of disinterest, Hazel said, I knew it. He asked in surprise, do you have the ability of foresight or something? Hearing his silly question made her despondent. She replied, do I look like I do? Crossing her arms with arrogance, Hazel explained it clearly. The moment you started calling me Miss Hazel for no reason. Hearing the explanation made him praise her sharpness. You're quite perceptive. Luke's tone of voice suddenly changed, becoming flattering. He said, anyway, my answer to your request, your grace, is... Hazel was resolute and replied decisively. No. Her answer made Luke freeze in surprise. What? Her firm refusal caused Hazel and him to have a small argument. Luke said, you're refusing me without even hearing me out? How rude. Hearing him blame her, she immediately retorted, you're the one who's rude. Shouldn't you apologize before asking for a favor? Luke asked, confused, apologize for what? An image of him pointing at her and accusing her appeared in her mind. Hazel said, you falsely accused me of using forbidden magic. Hearing her accusation made him remember and freeze. He said, that. Luke's face lowered with a look of admission. Yes, that was a false accusation. I was wrong to accuse you without proof. So I apologize. Hazel was surprised by his soft attitude. The word, ran through her mind repeatedly. He apologized so easily? Is this favor that important? Suddenly, Luke turned the accusation back on her, leaving her stunned. But you should also apologize for keeping my siblings after hearing that I went through hell every day, right, kid? Luna and Luca, cheerfully eating, appeared in a flashback. Hazel tried to explain. I had no idea they were your siblings. Her answer made him show his disbelief, saying, who would believe that? Hearing Luke say that, Hazel also thought to herself, I wouldn't believe it either. Raising both hands, she shook her head and said, anyway, I had my own reasons. I heard the children were being abused. Who would want to return them to abusive parents? Luke's face became frightening again as he emphasized, abused. Hazel said in a loud voice, the children said they were locked up in the house. His face annoyed, he retorted, what? Why would they want to live in a witch's house instead of a mansion? A spacious, magnificent manor, as described by Luke, appeared. Because it's too dangerous outside. That mansion has hundreds of rooms, dozens of gardens, and even a lake. How can you call living there being locked up? Are you saying that I'm a guardian worse than a witch? Glancing at the sword at his waist, she said, considering you tried to execute me in front of the children, I wouldn't say you're a good guardian. Hearing Hazel's reasoning, Luke bowed his head in acceptance. I admit that. I completely lost control at that time. She said with sincerity, no matter how noble they are, children still need to go out and explore the world. Looking into his emotionless eyes, Hazel said, do you know how much they love playing in the forest? Luke turned his emotionless gaze towards her and said, you wouldn't understand that nobles have duties commensurate with their status. No matter how much the children enjoy it, they can't just live and do fun things. Hearing his rigid absurdity, Hazel immediately retorted, that may be true for adults, but is it necessary to be so strictly limited for children? Daisy and Larry lay to one side, listening to the conversation between the two. She recalled when Luke had pointed at a mushroom and said, even though you're a noble, you know a lot about mushrooms, right? But the children couldn't even tell the difference and almost ate a poisonous mushroom. He propped up his chin and said with a smile, Miss Hazel, it seems you've raised children before. Hazel's eyes became sad as she said, that's right. A blurry image appeared in her mind along with the thought. They weren't my children, but I took care of other people's children. But I can't go back to those days. Hazel's eyes became determined again, and she clasped her hands tightly and said, anyway, there's another reason why I couldn't just send the children back. She said, they said you adopted them. Hazel's words made Luke exclaim in shock, what? He covered his face and said, why would they think that? Seeing his mood worsen, she said flusteredly, they're children, so it might just be a misunderstanding. I was just wondering if you have a bad relationship with them. Using magic, Hazel conjured a cup of tea and said, "Here, have some tea." Looking at Luke, who was covering his face unhappily, she continued, "Yes, it's a misunderstanding, but it's also partly my fault." Suddenly, he said, "To be honest," Luke confided, "conquest expeditions, diplomatic missions. I'm not at the mansion for long periods because of these duties." Accompanying his confession was an image of him tied with strings like a puppet, with the people he defeated behind him, controlled by the one holding the strings. An image of the two kids all alone as Luke perceived it. He said, "So it's not surprising that they thought they were adopted." Holding the teacup, Luke tilted his head up, closed his eyes, and said, "They're still too young to understand the complexities of adult life. But the safety of my siblings is still my top priority. So don't misunderstand." Hazel's eyes grew sad as she thought, the Grand Duke really cares about his siblings. In her thoughts, she felt, maybe he's not as bad as I thought. Suddenly, Luke said something that shattered the praise in Hazel's thoughts. "It seems there's no poison." That sentence made her face darken as she said, "Ugh, seriously." Inside the cave, a drop of water fell from the sharp points within. Fiddling with the handle of the teacup, he hesitated and said, "So." Looking directly at Hazel, Luke said, "I know it's crazy to ask a witch this." Having been eavesdropping for a while, Daisy asked, "What is it? Is it some kind of request?" Larry also wondered, the Grand Duke of all people. Luke said seriously, "When I go on the next expedition, could you temporarily be a nanny for the children?" After hearing his proposal, Hazel fell silent, saying nothing. Seeing she made no move, Luke touched his chin thoughtfully and said, "It's nearly impossible to find someone willing to be a nanny for the family." Suddenly, Hazel spoke up, cutting him off, "Your Grace." Her face excited, she grabbed Luke's hand that was on his chin, moved closer, and said, "I'd love to." Seriously, shaking his hand continuously, she said hurriedly, "I'd love to do it." Seeing Hazel's overly excited expression made Luke a little startled and scared as he said, "Wait, calm down a bit. You're suspiciously eager." Looking at the hand she was gripping tightly, he said, "But more importantly, you're putting your hand here." Hazel still didn't understand and wondered innocently. "My hand?" Seeing she didn't get his meaning, Luke was about to speak, but then stopped. "I mean, forget it. I've realized that we just don't understand each other." Hearing him say that, Hazel also thought to herself, "Me too, but who cares?" Turning around, she pulled Luke towards the cave entrance and said, "Let's go." He wondered, "Go where?" Hazel said excitedly, her eyes crinkling, "Where else?" "To the Grand Duchy, where the children are." Seeing her excitement, Luke helplessly reminded her, "The rain hasn't stopped yet." Looking out of the cave entrance, the sky was quite dark, and the rain was still heavy, which made Hazel realize. She turned back and said with a cheerful laugh, "Oh right, I got too excited." Seeing Hazel like that made Luke unconsciously smile as well. His face showed a hint of helplessness, along with a smile on his lips. Luke said, "You should learn more about weather magic." The sky cleared after the rain. The sun was gradually emerging from behind the dissipating clouds. His voice echoed in the space. "We'll leave when the rain stops." Hazel lifted her skirt, looking quite flustered. Looking at herself in the maid outfit in the mirror, Hazel thought to herself, "This makes me feel as if I've become one of the family." The Duke returned a few hours earlier. A mountain-high stack of papers was dropped onto the table with a thud. Hazel's jaw dropped as she exclaimed, "Are all of these part of the service rules?" The maid standing before the table said, "We will also conduct a test in a few hours to carry out an evaluation." Hazel was surprised. She hesitated. "Butler, when can I see the children?" Her sparkling eyes were full of pleading. The stern, serious maid said, "Do not call the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince by such crude words." Hearing this, Hazel silently retorted, "But they're so cute." The training that followed was rigorous, starting with manners and etiquette for meeting nobles. You must receive permission from the Grand Duke, the butler, or the head butler. Report anyone you meet when you go out to Sir Daniel, the captain of the Night Order, and other similar things. Hazel screamed internally, "What is all this?" She collapsed, giving up, and buried her face on the table. The maid standing before the table maintained her cold demeanor. "You have passed the test." Hazel lifted her head. Her poor, sparkling eyes said, "By the way, among the rules, there is one that forbids eating with the children. I mean with the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince. Sharing a meal together is the best way to form a close bond." Hearing this, the maid replied, "That rule is a matter of course." She let out an "oh." An additional note, try to avoid overly sweet desserts. as much as possible. Hearing that, Hazel asked, "It seems the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince have managed their meals with sweets, haven't they?" The maid replied, "Anyone can use such a trick." But Hazel had a determined look. "I only let the children eat freely on the first day when they were hungry. Of course, I agree to limit this to prevent obesity in children in cavities. Actually, I have a lot of experience in feeding children." The maid remained silent, not responding. Then she turned sharply and said, "It's good that we can communicate well now. Let me lead you to your room." The two of them strode down the hallway. Upon arriving, the maid opened the door to her room. Light from within shone out. Hazel's jaw dropped in astonishment and admiration. Her eyes lit up. A magnificent, beautiful room, fully furnished with a desk, chairs, and amenities. She asked excitedly, "The ducal mansion provides rooms like this for nannies, does it?" The maid walked over to draw the curtains aside. She let out a sigh. "Well, the working conditions need to be excellent to attract people here." Hazel's gaze fell upon the large bed. She spoke up, "But I find a room this large and luxurious uncomfortable. I'd rather sleep in my small house." At this, she suddenly thought of the scene of herself, huddled on a small, narrow mattress. She thought to herself, being left alone in a large space. "I don't like that anymore." The maid beside her sternly reminded Hazel, "Miss Hazel, have you forgotten the work rules regarding going out?" Hazel replied smugly, "Don't worry, I will follow the rules strictly." The maid was pensive, her eyes suddenly turning cold. "If so, that's good, but Miss Hazel, did you not bring any of your belongings?" Hearing that, Hazel laughed and scratched her head. "I can bring them later." Immediately, a set of clothes was thrown at Hazel. "You need to start working right now, so get changed and come out." The maid glanced haughtily at Hazel. "After you change, go to the kitchen. The chef said he needs your help." Hazel was bewildered. "What? Why does the chef need me?" In a small voice, "She's gone." At the same time, the door slammed shut with a bang. But Hazel said I should get changed. In Luke's room, he sat with his hands clasped behind his desk. Daniel stood before him. He exclaimed, "Have you lost your mind?" Luke spoke coldly. "Are you asking if the Grand Duke has lost his mind?" He growled. "It's clear that Sir Daniel of the Ahn household is not normal either." Daniel's eyes were sharp. The atmosphere between the two men was full of tension. He slammed the table too loudly. "Why did you bring back a witch instead of a nanny?" The loud sound echoed outside. Two maids whispered to each other. "Did something happen with the Grand Duke?" "The atmosphere is so tense, I can't go in." The other replied, "Don't ask." A short time earlier, the Grand Duke suddenly brought back a young woman on a white horse. The servants were all gossiping. But surprisingly, after a closer look, it turned out to be the man-eating witch from the dark forest. And to add to the drama, he wants her to be the nanny. This is truly desperate. Then Daniel said, "There have been rumors spreading that the Grand Duke has been bewitched by the witch." Luke glanced coldly at Daniel. "And what do you think? Do you think so too?" Daniel was flustered. "No, not at the moment. But perhaps my power is not enough, and I might be sensing it wrong." Streaks of blue light appeared on Daniel's hand. Luke, sitting opposite, saw this and smirked. "No, it's not that it's not enough. It's enough to monitor the witch." Daniel was stunned. "What?" Luke spoke. "Listen carefully. You will be excluded from this hunt." As if struck by lightning, Daniel was aghast. "Why, your grace? Leaving me behind to hunt such a dangerous monster?" "Aside from the short time I was in the Holy Knight Order, I have been by your side, protecting you since you were a child. What mission could be more important than that? What could be more important?" Luke cut Daniel off. "Watch the witch." Luke's cold eyes radiated a dark, murderous aura. Daniel's mouth hung open, his body frozen as if he hadn't reacted yet. He smiled. "I understand. This is your main strategy. With the power of a holy knight, I can certainly block the witch's magic." Luke nodded in agreement. "That's right. You'll achieve that quickly." He said in a low voice, "Daniel, as you know, there is nothing more important to me than protecting my younger siblings. The witch is just a tool to be used while I am on expedition. When I return, I will let her go." Hearing that, he let out a sigh. "So you will dismiss her when you return? That makes me feel relieved." Luke touched his chin. He replied, "That's right. I will see what happens after that." "But something has changed about that witch." Daniel was startled. "What? How so?" Luke answered, "It's not that she's dangerous." But he remembered when he was sitting on the horse with Hazel. "It's just Miss Hazel. Aren't you going to ask about the conditions?" Hazel looked blank. "Conditions?" Luke replied, "Like compensation or anything like that." Hazel went up. She laughed, her lock of hair swaying in the wind. "I don't need money. You could spend it all." That perhaps made Luke's heart skip a beat. He thought to himself, "Really?" Back in the present, Daniel asked, "So what are you referring to?" Luke, as if snapping out of it, said, it's nothing. He thought, she's a strong person. Back to Hazel. She pushed the door open. Well, next. Let's see. I don't know where the kitchen is. It's so big. Although it's spacious in here too. A voice rang out, catching Hazel's attention. There you are. She turned around and frowned, asking, who is it? When she turned around, she met the eyes of Daniel. He stared at Hazel and asked, who are you? She stood there awkwardly. And who are you? After seeing that face, Hazel was a little surprised. I remember. You're the one who took my carrot cake. Daniel, with a blank face, looked at the witch. No, Hazel, has no one told you not to wander around the Grand Duke's mansion so carelessly? Hazel scratched her head in confusion. Right, I know that, but the head chef called for me, and I didn't receive any directions. Daniel let out a sigh. Then I will guide you. As Hazel followed behind him, she said cheerfully, thank you. By the way, what should I call our night? Daniel didn't pay her much mind. He spoke up, answering Daniel. I am the captain of the guard and the vice commander of the night order. Hazel stared at Daniel, making him uncomfortable. She spoke up. Yes, Daniel. It seems you've been working with His Grace for a long time, haven't you? He exclaimed angrily. Address me as Sir Daniel. I am not someone you can casually call directly by name. I have served the Grand Duke longer and more closely than anyone else. He looked at her with murderous eyes. So it would be wise if you don't think about committing any foolish acts. I am not your knight. Hazel looked at Daniel with dissatisfaction. She thought to herself, oh my, how cold. But actually, he seems like a good and loyal person. Daniel, walking beside her with his eyes closed, said, I will be watching your every move. Hazel grinned and replied, sure, go ahead. It's not clear if it was because of her somewhat carefree remark, but it made Daniel a little annoyed and speechless. He turned his head towards the door of the next room and introduced, this is the kitchen. Hazel looked at him, a bit unable to understand. She thought, why does he look so sullen? After the two entered the kitchen, Hazel was a bit excited. She looked around the room and exclaimed, oh my, the kitchen is so big. Hazel was a bit surprised because the room was much larger than she had imagined. Hazel thought that, with over 100 people working at the Grand Duke's mansion, this was reasonable. Suddenly, there were some whispers around. Is that the witch, the new nanny they were talking about? Hazel thought helplessly. The rumor has already spread. A shout from the side suddenly erupted. What are you all doing? Move it. A voice suddenly spoke up, catching her attention. Head chef, about that. Oh, that person. She was surprised when they talked about her. A man spoke with a look of contempt on his face. The new nanny? Daniel nodded slightly. He pushed her forward, then said in a somewhat respectful tone, yes, Sir Harrow, I received your request to meet the new nanny. Miss Hazel, he said in an arrogant tone, for the Grand Duke's dinner tonight. I want to ask what the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince want to eat for dinner tonight. He told me to ask you, the new nanny. Hazel was astonished at the mention of her name, her face looking confused. She spoke up, the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince are very picky eaters. But if you mix the ingredients they like together, like in a beef stew, they eat very well. Yes, Harrow was a bit sarcastic. He clicked his tongue that's a commoner's dish. Boiled in beef broth. Hazel replied, a little flustered, yes, you seem to know a lot about it. She thought to herself, what's wrong? Did I offend his pride by giving good advice? Harrow looked at her with a disdainful gaze, then pointed to the side and said, you're quite knowledgeable. Why don't you go to that clean counter over there and make a dish? Dinner starts in 20 minutes, so you'll only have a little time. Hazel exclaimed in surprise. 20 minutes? She calculated on her fingers for a moment. Even if his pride is hurt, it's still a good idea, she thought. Hazel said in a firm voice, I'll do it. Then she snapped her fingers. Countless different food items appeared out of thin air, stunning everyone in the kitchen in their amazement. Then Daniel pointed straight at her and shouted, wait, where did you get this stuff? Hazel calmly said, from home. Then she gathered all the ingredients into a basin. Daniel took out a bottle and spoke up, Miss Hazel, you can't bring outside ingredients into the kitchen without an inspection. Have you read the work rules? Hazel scratched her cheek and said nonchalantly, it's not in the nanny's rule book. He was flustered. Well, that's true, but she turned her head away. Then how would I know? Daniel said while pouring a solution from the bottle into the basin of food. Anyway, from now on, make sure that outside ingredients are inspected before being brought into the kitchen. Hazel nodded. Okay, I'll do that. She looked into the basin. That's a reagent to test for poison. Hazel spoke up. The Grand Duke's mansion has witches too, doesn't it? This reagent is supplied by the Witches Association. Yes, Daniel replied calmly. 8T the Grand Duke's mansion. Both ingredients and reagents come from reliable sources. Hazel was a little surprised. Oh, it must be very expensive. I have a lot more at home. Want me to bring some? He immediately retorted without thinking. No need. After checking the food, he breathed a sigh of relief. All right, no poison. Hazel was also cheerful beside him. That's right. Great. She rolled up her sleeves. All right then, let's start preparing dinner. Hazel was a little excited. At this moment, in the mansion's dining room, the door opened. The members of the ducal family began to enter. Hazel stood by the side of the kitchen door, peeking in. Oh no, it's the children. I almost screamed. Are they really here to eat? The atmosphere is so tense. I wonder when I'll be allowed to see them. It's true that if the children knew I was here, they would probably stop eating and get distracted. Looking at the spread of food laid out across the table, Hazel thought, the food looks so beautiful. Looking back at her own dish, she could only sigh. Compared to them, my dish, it stands out too much in a bad way. The Grand Duke will notice right away. She broke into a cold sweat, sneaking a peek. Starting with the dish at the end, Hazel was so elated that she let her guard down, almost shouting in delight. Luke, standing there, saw her. The two of them faced each other in silence for a moment. He was a little surprised. Hazel quickly hid behind the side of the door. I shouldn't be here. Daniel, standing beside her, was also a bit puzzled. What's wrong with you? Hazel paid him no mind, focusing on Luke from a moment ago. Why did he look at me like that? Even though he was going to eat it, why did he eat a little with such a cautious look? Was he checking for poison or something? Suddenly, Luke's face now looked excited as he ate the dish she made. At this, Daniel looked at Hazel with an anything but normal gaze as she smiled with a slightly mischievous expression. She looked at Luke's expression and praised herself a little. See? It's delicious, isn't it? All right. Daniel, feeling uneasy, hurriedly grabbed Hazel's hand, intending to go outside. IT looks like we have to test it with the reagent one more time. She turned a little pale. Oh no, I'm just too happy. I'm just too happy, that's all. The children might get startled while they're eating. Outside the dining room, Luke instructed the chef, serve this dish to the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince, and bring me some more. A plate of stir-fried noodles was brought right in front of the two children. The children are finally eating. Hazel was a little happy. Luna and Luca seemed to really like the dish after eating it. More, please. Me too. Me too. And for me as well. The children were a little excited. Hazel was in the kitchen, covering her face with pride. They're so adorable. She thought only the poison was meant for him. Luna said happily, Harrow, this is a meal I'm very satisfied with after all this time. He bowed his head and said, Thank you, Your Highness. But I did not make this dish. Luna was delighted. Really? Then have this person cook for me from now on. Hazel stood at the door, looking at Harrow. You didn't look happy at all. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take your job. Luke watched the children eat their fill with a satisfied expression. He reminded his siblings, Luna, don't make noise while eating. Luca, you should keep your mouth closed when you chew. Hazel looked at them and thought, but I made that dish. Will the Grand Duke not say anything about it? He's just nagging. Well, I was prepared for this. A servant said, Since you two have finished your meal, I will now bring dessert. Luca and Luna turned around excitedly. Oh my. Finally, dessert. Luna looked at the dessert, seemingly thinking of someone. That's right, these cookies. They just stood up. Hazel, inside, used magic to control the batch of cookies on the plate, making them move. The two children jumped up, their faces beaming as they looked in Hazel's direction. She opened the kitchen door, her face joyful. Kids. Luna and Luca threw themselves into her arms, sobbing, It's Sister Hazel. She replied happily, I missed you so much. The two children kept tearing up that we missed you so much too. Hazel comforted them. Oh, don't cry. Come on, you two, stop it. Luke said in a stern voice, Luna, Luca, you haven't finished your meal yet. If you don't return to your seats in 10 seconds, there will be no dessert for you today. The children pulled on Hazel's skirt, whining. She comforted them, my little peanuts. You need to be obedient, right? Daniel looked at his master. That nickname again. Your Grace, it's my fault. I already corrected that nickname, but Luke just sighed that'll be fine. I know this is difficult for the children. He continued, Miss Hazel, please wait outside until the meal is over. I have something to discuss with you. Hazel was a little annoyed inside. Really? He dares to say things like this in front of the children. The one who really needs to learn etiquette is the Grand Duke himself. In her room now, Hazel paced back and forth, thinking, I wonder what he wants to talk about. And it turned out, he told me not to wear this outfit. I've gotten used to wearing it. She spun around to look at this maid outfit. Hazel thought of the Duke's angry face when he said, From now on, make sure you wear something that is easily noticeable, even from a distance. Her face was a little helpless. There even an outfit like that. Hazel went to the wardrobe. There are no clothes in the wardrobe yet, but she smiled. This outfit will make my work easier. Hazel confidently used her magic on the wardrobe. She thought, in the nanny's rule book, there's no rule saying I can't connect my house outside to the mansion, right? A brilliant light shone from within the wardrobe. At this moment, on the other side of the door, Darcy and Larry were looking at that door. Then they rushed into Hazel's arms, who was delighted on the other side of the wardrobe door. Larry asked, "I've been waiting for word from you. Why were you so late? Did something happen?" Hazel slowly replied, "Yeah. Well, I'll explain everything slowly from now on." A single light flickered in the mansion. Only Hazel's room was still lit. At that time, Larry, Darcy, and she were talking to each other. "Did you negotiate?" "Negotiate what?" she wondered. "Your salary." "Salary for what?" Larry was helpless. "Oh, I need to get on my knees and beg for your forgiveness." Hazel remembered something. She said cheerfully, I did get an apology." Larry cried silently in his heart. Why Master is truly an easygoing person." Darcy spoke up, "So where are the children?" Hazel waved her hand and walked away. "That I'm going to read the children's story and tuck them in. Speaking of which, I should take a bath too. Let's wake up early tomorrow and go see the children." Hot, steaming water flowed into the tub. Hazel lay relaxing in the warm water. She was happy that it was a busy day, but I'm also happy that I was able to connect that door to home. Larry and Darcy also really missed the little peanuts. That's right. An idea occurred to her. I'm sure one of the mansion's rules is that cats are not allowed. Suddenly, a scream came from the room. Hazel scrambled out of the bathtub. What was that? Did something happen? She was stunned to find both Luna and Luca in a room. What's wrong? Luna used a wheedling tone. "Sister Hazel, can we sleep here tonight?" Luca, beside her, added, "It's scary sleeping alone." She thought about the two kids' room. All right. Luna and Luca's room is even bigger than mine. Hazel said cheerfully, "Then all of us will sleep together here tonight." The two little ones were so excited they tossed Darcy high into the air. She hugged the two children. Oh my. Thank goodness this bed is big. My grand princess, my grand prince. Luna was a little embarrassed. "Don't call us that." Luca whimpered. "It hurt us so much when you were gone. Sister Hazel, please comfort us." She hugged the little boy's head, comforting him. "Oh, I'm sorry. My little peanuts." Luca grinned and threw himself into her arms. Luna also clamored, "Me too. Do that to me." Hazel was a little helpless. "Really?" She mused. "I've missed this laughter for so long." She turned to talk to Luna that I was going to come to you, but brother wouldn't let me go. She was surprised. "Really?" But that was the right thing to do. Luna was a bit puzzled. "Why?" Hazel explained, "Because this is very dangerous. You can meet bad people, so never think about running away from here again, okay?" The two kids excitedly sat up and said in unison, "We won't run away anymore, because now we have you. Hazel, live with us right here in our home." She was a little surprised looking at the kids. Hazel's face showed a bit of worry as she thought, "The children don't know that I'm only here temporarily. How should I tell them?" She avoided the topic. Let's go to bed early. I'll make omelets tomorrow." Luna and Luca were overjoyed. Wonderful. The three of them began to fall asleep. The moonlight outside gradually moved. Clouds drifted across the quiet night sky. At this moment in the kitchen, Harrow slammed his hand on the table. "Damn it, it's just a simple recipe. From commoners. That's all. But now, how can it have such a damnably complex flavor? I need to know her secret." Daniel opened the door from outside and came in. "Head chef, I apologize for bothering you so late at night." Hearing the voice, Harrow quickly froze, behaving as if nothing had happened. Daniel looked around. "The Grand Prince and Grand Princess didn't come out here, did they?" Harrow replied, "No, I haven't seen them around here." He panicked. "This is bad. Where could they have gone?" The entire mansion began to search for Luna and Luca. "Deploy more guards to the garden all night." Luke ordered his subordinates. "Yes, sir," everyone in the mansion replied. The bustling sounds echoed everywhere. Luke was angry. "She's a witch. How dare she be so careless with the children?" The next morning, "Explain yourself," Luke shouted straight in her face. At this moment, Hazel could only bow her head and accept the blame. He angrily growled, "Do you know how much chaos erupted after the servants found the children's room empty at dawn? Do you know how chaotic it was? Fortunately, I found the children before things got worse. Furthermore, a nanny who dares to sleep in the same bed with noble children, along with a cat and a dog. Do you know that this is truly unacceptable?" Can you imagine how panicked I was? Luke was so angry that you could see the flames behind him blazing fiercely. Hazel then shyly said, "That's right, isn't it? But there's no rule about this." He exclaimed helplessly, "Of course there wouldn't be a rule. I should also commend you for your clear understanding of the regulations." Luke placed his hands on the table. "I see. You follow the rules without any fine. Since you followed the rules so thoroughly." Hazel felt something was amiss. He picked up a pen. His face was a little creepy. "I've come up with a solution myself," Luke said directly to Hazel's face. I will set a new rule. Starting from this moment, the children will have to sleep in their respective rooms. She calmly replied, very well. Luke looked at her with a slightly suspicious gaze. I thought she would have more to say. Is it really very well? No. Then after that, Hazel moved the pen from his desk into her hand. She looked at the amended contract and said, oh, by the way, Your Grace the Grand Duke, I'll borrow a pen. About the ban on two-tailed cats. You added this rule because Daisy broke into the ducal residence, right? Hazel used her sparkling eyes to persuade. Luke, I was wondering if you could remove this ban. He stood by helplessly and replied, fine, I'll do that. In his heart, he felt a little guilty. When he looked into her eyes, why do I feel like I'm the one getting swept up in this? Hazel suddenly spoke up. And also, can I build a garden? Her suggestion made Luke's eyes widen. In disbelief, he spoke up. Mississippi Hazel, surely you haven't forgotten that this is just a temporary contract, have you? Hazel tried to persuade him, but I'll leave all the plans behind, even when the contract ends. But Luke's face darkened. His voice deepened. No, I will not allow you to mess up this ducal residence any further. Hazel didn't give up and continued to persuade him. She even showed him images she had saved for the children. The situation in front of her was a little pitiful. But right now, the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince have schedules that are too busy every week. At their age, being able to play freely is replaced by studying. Moreover, they really like the vegetables that they harvested with me. Today, I plan to make omelets with some carrots I picked earlier. Would you also like to try some, Your Grace? Hearing that invitation, Luke immediately agreed. Yes, his face was a little gleeful. Hazel happily burst out laughing. Then please write a permission document. Luke could only sigh. He took a long breath and reluctantly agreed with her. All right. Hearing that, Hazel hurriedly ran off, only leaving behind the words, then I'll be on my way, leaving him to helplessly watch her retreating back. Now, only Luke remained in the room. He leaned back in his chair and sighed wearily. Lines of thought appeared in his mind. What a strange woman. Now I understand why she doesn't feel burdened by Luna and Luca at all. That witch. She's like a combination of Luna's fierceness and Luca's positive energy. No, she's even more than that. But then again, she follows the rules and regulations without asking any questions. Is this really the only way I can find my own siblings? Just then, the three of them, Hazel, Luna, and Luca, had all the gardening supplies ready. Standing in the courtyard, she smiled happily. Hello there. Daniel looked on with a weary expression. What is this? The Grand Prince must leave for his endurance training right now. She happily explained, the important thing is, how about I train his endurance through gardening today? Because we already have a garden in the greenhouse. He said bluntly, didn't His Grace only give you a document permitting you to set up a garden? So it's not allowed. Please head to the training room. Luna and Luca pursed their lips and glared straight at Daniel. The two kids rolled up their sleeves and whispered to each other. Are you ready? The two of them pressured him, garden. Their voices grew louder, making Daniel sweat. Helpless, he had to agree with them. All right. But in return, please adhere to the rest of the schedule. The two kids jumped up happily. Yes, sir. The three of them stood in front of the greenhouse and cheered. Let's grow broccoli together. The gardener standing behind them looked on, a bit helpless. I don't feel comfortable at all. Hazel happily looked at the gardener next to her and said, before that, I need to get to know everyone. Today, you'll be in charge of taking care of me. The man stammered. Oh, that's right, huh? Inside the greenhouse, the garden was so beautiful. It made them exclaim in amazement. Hazel and the two children began to till the soil. They happily discussed with each other. Let's plant this one and this one too. Let's begin. Daniel stared at the three of them. Noble children gardening. Before he could finish his sentence, Hazel interrupted him. There is no such thing as useless knowledge, Sir Daniel. Through this, they will mature and understand the lives of the farmers. In this domain, this is not an experience that one can gain by sitting and reading. Daniel looked at her with an amused expression, then shook his head because the three of them were too noisy. Over there, Luca was crying because Hazel was scaring him with a worm. Time passed, and everything was finished. They shouted with joy, looking at the garden before them. Hazel cheered for the two kids. We finished so early. Good job. It's wonderful. Luna's face was full of pride. Luca also happily hugged his teddy bear. I also want to eat broccoli with you, Sister Hazel, Sister Luna, and Lulu too. Suddenly, she noticed something. The teddy bear in Luca's arms had gotten dirty. Hazel thought, why'd I let it get like this? I should wash it after the children returned to their rooms. She took out a note and said cheerfully, now we're going to have a short quiz. Who wants to read out the names of the plants we planted today? Broccoli. The kids clamored. Hazel was happy. That's right. What about this one? Luca looked at the words on the paper, then turned to him. It's green onions, Sir Daniel. The kid was excited. It's green onions, right? He happily knelt down slightly and said, yes, that's right. Suddenly, Hazel and Luna stared at Daniel, making him freeze, not daring to move. She smiled brightly and said, this is a gardening activity that they really enjoy, along with a lesson too. What do you think? Daniel quickly composed himself and coughed a few times. Ahem, well, it doesn't look too bad. Hazel looked at the sky. Oh, look at the time. Then she offered the sandwiches in her hand to him, smiling. Would you like to try some sandwiches I packed? Daniel looked at the sandwich in his hand for a long time. Luna, while chewing, asked Daniel, are you being picky with your food? Luca also spoke while munching. But it's really good. He panicked and quickly brought the sandwich to his mouth. All right, I'll eat it. Daniel took a bite, and his eyes lit up. Daniel, while chewing, said, it's all thanks to someone. She looked at him, a little excited, seemingly having thought of something. It seems like he's hiding something. Did he come here to avoid working with the Grand Duke? Hazel spoke up. I'm very grateful to you for looking after the children, but if the Grand Duke catches you and you get in trouble, then... An angry voice rang out from behind them. Caught doing what? She shrieked in alarm. Hazel turned her head and took a breath. You scared me, Your Grace. Have you eaten yet? If you haven't, would you like to have a meal with us? Luke stared intently at the bread in her hand. A meal? She replied happily, yes, I still have one more sandwich. He stared for a long time, his mind in a bit of chaos. I've already eaten. Why do I still want to accept it? While thinking, Luke reached out and took the sandwich from her hand. Hazel wondered, didn't you just return from a luncheon? Hello. Daniel spoke up for him. That's right. She still looked bewildered at this moment. I understand. Luna and Luca ran to her, their voices a little adorable. Sister Hazel, please give us more. She looked at the children. Oh my, really? She took out the last pastry from the basket. There's only one left, so you two should share it. Luke could only stand frozen when he saw that scene. He coughed lightly, then spoke up. Anyway, we came here to visit the children. Why are they dressed like farmers? Hazel looked at him cheerfully. Didn't you say we could redecorate the garden? And by working directly with our hands in the dirt, their immune systems will be strengthened. Luke said as he walked, his voice slightly amused. Is that so? Then I'll check with the attending physician. Dr. Maurice, I'm leaving now. He walked away quickly and casually snatched the loaf of bread from Daniel's hand. To his bewilderment, Your Grace, that's mine. I've only had one bite. Daniel watched Luke's retreating back in despair. He was so sad his face crumpled, and a few tears welled up. Meanwhile, Luke walked on, taking a bite of the bread he had just stolen from Daniel. At this moment, he kept thinking about her beautiful, exquisite face from back then. Damn it, my thoughts are getting stranger and stranger. 3 days before Duke Elliot's expedition, Daniel reported to Luke, there's nothing unusual, sir. Luke sat behind his desk and asked sternly, you didn't find any suspicious movements after following her for 3 whole days? Daniel replied, although they weren't very suspicious, she did make a move. On the second day, she went to the market near the ducal residence during her break. Since it looked suspicious, I followed her. But she only bought a few gifts for the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince before returning, sir. Luke rested his chin on his hand. Wait a minute. If she did that on the second day, he thought to himself, that's when I found the witch and forced her to pay me. Is she paying it back through the children? Even though they're spoiled with so many things they can't even use in their lives. Seriously, she's hard for me to understand. Daniel's voice interrupted his train of thought. Your Grace, speaking of her amiable appearance, it seems to be used to charm people, so you should be especially wary when you're around her. Hearing this, Luke was bewildered. Amiable? Charming me? Daniel continued. The number of people in the ducal residence who have taken a liking to the witch is increasing. Even yesterday, while I was patrolling the kitchen area, you remember that night when he was standing in front of the door. A voice came from inside. Miss Hazel, please sell me your secret. I'll keep this a secret from the Duke, and in return, I'll pay you a considerable sum. Daniel wondered to himself, what is this noise? He peeked through the door. It was Harrow and Hazel. He clasped his hands, pleading that you use potions as rumored? If not, I'll pay you a generous fee. Hazel was flustered. She stammered, there's nothing like that, sir, and I don't need money either. I'll reveal it to you for free. Daniel stood behind the door, witnessing everything. He thought to himself, to think that he, a chef with over 15 years of experience, is bowing his head to a witch. Harrow said loudly, are you saying I can learn your secret without paying a single penny? Hazel replied, simmer it for a few hours until the meat is cooked, tender, and can be pulled apart easily. Saying that, Hazel stirred the stew pot. Harrow asked, aren't you going to add some red wine? She replied, yes. The children have quite sensitive palates, so we need to season it accordingly. Hazel said excitedly. Just add a little more seasoning while it's boiling. Harrow touched his chin that you've seasoned it twice already, haven't you? Hazel let out a nah. My grandmother taught me how to estimate things while cooking. Now the beef stew is done. Hearing that, Harrow exclaimed with excitement. He let out an excited shout. Hazel said happily, at first, I thought you were a scary person, but now I think you're someone to be admired, because you're trying to learn from someone as unworthy as me. Harrow tasted the broth. At the same time, he denied unworthy. Not at all. Well, I admit that I'm also someone to be admired. Daniel stood outside the door, seemingly unable to believe his eyes. He thought to himself, Sir Harrow. Back to Luke's office. He finished his report. That's the scene I witnessed, sir. Luke scoffed. Oh, you think I'll start getting used to the witch's presence just because of this? That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard today. As he thought this, he seemed to suddenly realize something again. Again, just thinking about how this which had stunned him. He thought again of that sandwich with ham, cheese, and egg that I've never been hungry. And my pure desire to eat has long since not been stirred. That woman. He remembered Hazel's appearance and her pleasant voice. Your Grace. At that moment, the door opened. Hazel peeked her head through the door and hesitated. Your Grace. Luke was stunned. That am I really hallucinating? He removed the 2 fingers covering his eyes. Luke couldn't believe his eyes. You must be very busy, so I apologize, Your Grace. Hazel peeked into the room. Luke replied, No, the captain was about to leave. Come in. He thought to himself, speaking of this wicked witch, what brings her here? He asked, What is it? I want to give you a gift. Hazel beamed, holding up a small wooden chest with both hands. Luke asked in surprise, a gift? Yes. Hazel replied cheerfully, one's first salary should be used to buy gifts for those they are very grateful to. Luke asked, Am I someone you're very grateful to? Yes. Hazel replied, I've prepared one made of silver, and it suits you very well, Your Grace the Grand Duke. It's not that I didn't make a gold one because I didn't have enough money. I swear. Luke opened it. Inside was a silver pendant, incredibly beautiful and bright. It was placed neatly on a red cloth lining. A very exquisite gift. He wondered, a necklace. Holding the necklace in his hand, Luke thought to himself, using silver instead of gold. Now I can tell whether it's poisoned or not. Good. This necklace doesn't look suspicious at all. But my relationship with her is quite bad. And now she's grateful to me? Seriously? Your Grace. A voice cut through Luke's train of thought. Hazel approached him and pointed at the gift. She said excitedly, You should open it. You'll like it. Luke was startled in the awkward atmosphere. Luke stammered, How could you? Hazel said enthusiastically, Wait a moment. If you press it like this, the number of people the witch has won over keeps increasing. After speaking, she tucked her hair back and smiled gently. Luke was startled and quickly pulled his hand away. What trick are you playing? Hazel looked bewildered. That a trick? But I was just trying to open it for you. Luke frowned, thinking, she certainly has a face that everyone finds amiable. But that doesn't mean she can win my favor. He said, Learn to restrain yourself from approaching me without warning or permission. Hearing this, Hazel raised an eyebrow and replied obediently, Ah, yes. You're afraid of me, aren't you, Your Grace? I'll be more careful from now on. Luke denied, It's not that I'm afraid. Suddenly, a sparkling yellow light appeared as he opened the pendant. The image inside made him freeze. It was Luna and Luca. The 2 children looked incredibly happy. He mused, Did you draw this picture yourself? Hazel admitted, Yes, I used to be an illustrator. Hearing that, Luke replied, Very good. At first, I thought you had shrunk them, put them inside, and locked them in. Hazel put her hands on her hips. What are you talking about? You really drew them to look exactly like they do in real life, Luke said. You'll probably miss the children a lot during the expedition. Hearing that, he smiled. Very good. Thank you for this thoughtful gift. Thank you very much. I'll even be able to hear the children's bickering throughout this expedition. Hazel said shyly, Actually, this is a bribe. Luke was startled. What? I want to have a good relationship with you, Your Grace the Grand Duke. Luke was lost in thought. Her amiable appearance seems to be used to charm people, so you should be especially wary when you're around her. He wondered, is she trying to charm me with these kind words? Hazel continued, but the little chestnuts don't know that my contract will end once you return from the expedition, right? He replied, If they knew, you wouldn't be able to control Luna. Hearing that, Hazel fidgeted with her fingertips and hesitated. Even so, they'll be hurt once the children find out later. They believe I'll be here from now on. I didn't object to it either. Luke suddenly turned cold. His eyes flashed fiercely. Oh, this is what she really wants when she says she wants a good relationship with me. He spoke up, which don't you ever think about using the children to play tricks to extend your contract? Hazel frantically refuted. That's not it. Luke ordered coldly. Don't you dare breathe a word of this to the children. I'm warning you. He held the necklace, about to drop it back into the box. I won't accept any bribes. So take it back. Hazel's face paled. She quickly waved her hands and said frantically, no, sir. I was just kidding. I really gave it to you so you could look at the children. Well, I'll take my leave to put them to bed now. With that, Hazel quickly disappeared behind the door. Luke gazed thoughtfully at the necklace. How annoying. People can't change overnight. I can't trust and entrust them to a criminal for a long time, even if everything seems peaceful right now. Hazel pushed the door open to the room, excited it's time for you to take a bath and get ready for bed. Luna and Luca were sitting on the floor. The two children said in unison, really? Hazel suddenly seemed to remember something. Oh, that's right. Doo-doo. I've decided to wash that teddy bear because it's gotten too dirty. Looking at the grimy pink rabbit in Luca's hands, Hazel said, Luca, do you want to take a bath with Dudu today? Luca replied with an unwilling expression, no. Mother smile, I don't want to. Hazel let out an embarrassed, I remember when I was in the second grade of elementary school when my mother left. She had filled the refrigerator with food, as if it were her last gift. I couldn't eat any of it before it went bad. How foolish. What was I to do with all this? In the end, my grandmother came and threw all that food away. At that time, I weakly grabbed my grandmother's shirt. The little girl's eyes were brimming with tears. No, please don't throw them away. The little girl burst into sobs. That was the first time I cried, giving up on being withdrawn. She suddenly hugged the two kids. Luca spoke up, confused. Hazel, Luna asked, are you crying, sister? These children are still so young. Hazel thought, how much must they miss their mother? I might be a bit presumptuous, but hey kids, if you want anything, please tell me right away, okay? Hazel gently held the two children's hands. I want to love these children as much as their parents could have. Luca hesitated. Hazel asked, what is it? The little one whispered in her ear, Hazel agreed with Luca. All right, we'll ask the Grand Duke tomorrow, okay? The next morning, Luke was sitting alone in the large dining room. On the table were dishes, decorations, and cutlery. Behind Luke stood two servants. He spoke angrily. Why isn't she here? As soon as he finished speaking, the dining room door swung open. Hazel cheerfully walked in, holding Luna and Luca's hands. The two little ones were still half asleep. She greeted them enthusiastically. Hello. Luke looked at Luna and asked warmly, are you sleepy? Working in the garden has left you still sleepy, even after a little nap. Luna sat at the table. The little one replied, rubbing her eyes sleepily. That's not it. The scripture class was incredibly boring. The teacher from the church came, even though he is very busy. The food cart approached. The lid of the tureen was opened. A fragrant aroma caught Luke's attention. This doesn't look like the soup the chef makes. What does this mean? Eat this first. The tempting soup was served. Luke exclaimed as he ate a spoonful. It's so delicious. The witch's food is like a warm and quiet fireplace, melting the cold body and mind on a freezing winter day. Luke thought this tranquility. Come to think of it, why are the children so quiet? Lifting his head, he was met with two pairs of big, round eyes filled with anticipation. Are they staring at me? Usually, they would be making munching sounds or dropping their spoons a few times. A giant question mark appeared. He reached for his glass of water. The two little ones also hurriedly touched their glasses. Are they imitating me? What is going on? Looking over at Hazel, she put her index finger to her lips. Is she telling me to be quiet? What are you doing, witch? Let's see. Luke's expression was filled with competitiveness. What if they can also imitate the way I eat Brussels sprouts? Luke's action shocked the children. He chewed smugly. Luna and Luca trembled. They seemed confused and disgusted by the Brussels sprouts. Instantly, Luna put the vegetable in her mouth. The little one's action shocked Luke just as much. She ate it. Luca timidly brought the sprout to his mouth. Me too. Luna turned to Luke and shouted, I won. On the other side, Luca was still struggling with the hard-to-swallow Brussels sprout. Luke's jaw dropped in amazement. I can't believe she won. What are you kids doing? Hazel clapped loudly. She cheered happily for Luna and Luca. That's great. Luke beckoned Hazel to come closer. He silently questioned her. What are you doing? Hazel replied, it's a competition. Luke wondered, a competition? Who can imitate the Grand Duke better? Hazel answered cheerfully. Luke's face darkened. What are my siblings and I clowns? Hazel let out an ah and denied it. That's not it. Children often learn by imitating others. I think learning table manners by observing and imitating is more effective than teaching with words. Besides, the Grand Duke's table manners are perfect, so it's good to set an example, right? Luke turned away, looking smug. There is no one better to set an example than me, so I guess it's fine. Hazel added, oh, that's right. After the meal, you need to choose the winner. the prize should also be given by you. How about reading a storybook tonight? Luke sighed. This is the most audacious nanny I've ever seen. Isn't this your job? Hazel replied, you're leaving tomorrow morning. I hope you will make some beautiful memories with the children before you leave. Please make sure their wishes are fulfilled. Luke pondered for a moment, then he agreed. All right. He returned to the table. All right. Has everyone finished their meal? The kids shouted in unison, yes, sir. Luke clapped once. Then we should decide the winner of tonight's dinner, right? I like how both of you participated in the competition so seriously. First, Grand Princess Luna Benben. She always replies, yes, sir. He continued, your excellent action today, which was eating something you dislike, is a wonderful example for the noble children of the Empire. And Grand Prince Lucas Brand. The little one replied, yes. Your courage in tasting food you dislike without dropping your fork even once is truly commendable today. Therefore, it is difficult to choose between the contestants. Today, we must declare both of you as winners. Immediately, the children cheered with excitement. Luna asked, so what about the prize? Oh, never mind that, brother. How should we celebrate this victory? Hearing this, Hazel was secretly proud. Luna is really sharp. Luke rested his chin on his hand and nodded. That's right, a prize should be awarded. What would the Grand Prince and Grand Princess like to receive? Chocolate, sleeping in, and skipping class are not allowed. Luca looked at Luke with big, sparkling eyes. The little one took a breath, hesitating as if he had something to say. Luca, tell me quickly. Luke wondered if the boy had decided on something. Luca made a sound. Then the little one leaned close to Luke's ear and whispered something. Maybe the boy has discovered the witch's contract. Luca told Luke something, and it seemed to surprise him. Resting his hands on the table, Luke thought to himself, this is unbelievable. All of this. All they want is, we want to play with you, brother. It's actually not a big deal. Just draping a few blankets over the furniture. And why was the boy so cautious when saying something so trivial? Luna shouted excitedly, let's play dungeon exploration now. You'll be the knight. I'll be the commander. Luca also cheered happily. I'll be the witch. Hearing that, Luna turned and said, you're a man, so you're a sorcerer. Luca put his finger to his mouth, looking bewildered. Huh? But I want to be a witch. Then the kids, while pulling the blanket, cheered excitedly. Sir Elliot, attack. Luke played along. Yes, sir. He thought to himself, it's humiliating to be like this in front of the nanny. But I'm happy that Luca still continues to come to me. And Luna rested her body on my back. It's been a long time since I've had a moment of happiness like this. A while later, they were all tired and fell asleep. When they sleep, they look like little angels. Luke tucked the kids in. He turned to leave. I need to handle some work and rest a bit before the expedition. The children's wishes aren't too big, are they? Hazel leaned forward and asked. Luke was slightly startled and turned back. Luke smiled and let out a sigh. Actually, I was very surprised, but I thought they no longer liked spending time with me. But they really love being with you. Hazel interrupted him. They understand how busy you are, so they had to hold back. Today, while playing with them, they kept glancing at the door and the clock. They knew you were checking the time constantly. You knew they were watching you, didn't you? Luca and Luna sat up. Little Luca spoke up. Are you busy, brother? Luna continued, we'll go to sleep soon, so you can go ahead and get to your work. At that scene, Luke pensively looked at the starry sky through the glass window. Today, I just wanted to be a good older brother. Hazel questioned him. Have you ever wondered what the children want? Luke snapped. You can't just give them anything they want. I will raise them properly. Hazel retorted. Children need to be raised properly. That's right. But they also need love. Luke coldly dismissed her. Hazel, no one in this world loves the children more than I do. Hazel narrowed her eyes, silently protesting with her gaze. I don't understand why I have to justify myself to a mere nanny who has only been here for a short time. She still maintains that attitude. Oh, right. By the way, Your Grace, I have a wonderful piece of art that I think would be perfect for the children's playroom. Would you like to buy it? Luke was surprised. Why is she suddenly mentioning that? It's absurd, but he agreed anyway. All right, tell me, and I'll consider it. Can't you see it? Hazel was implying something. It's in my head. Luke was petrified, bewildered. What on earth are you talking about? Miss Hazel, I think you're becoming an old person. Are you getting old? Asking for something wonderful without being able to draw it out. Some people also insist on love without expressing it. Hazel suddenly moved closer. When you return, I hope you will secure time in your busy schedule to spend with the children. During that time, you should forget about work. Just be an older brother and a protector for the children. As she spoke, she reached out and took the necklace she had given him. Then Hazel opened the locket. I want to cast a good luck spell for you, but I know you wouldn't like that. I hope you will return safely from the expedition. Luke blushed. Perhaps he didn't think she would act like that. The night was quiet. Hazel walked out of the room cheerfully, humming as she went. I feel relieved now that I've said everything I wanted to say. It's such a relief that the Grand Duke took it seriously. Suddenly, she smelled something. That scent is the Grand Duke's favorite soup. Is the ducal kitchen still working at this hour? Oh, thinking back on it, she recalled being in the kitchen with Chef Harrow. He said, even though we make the same dish, exactly the same, how can the taste be so different? Hazel was surprised. How could that be? That's impossible. Harrow replied, however, our chefs also acknowledge it. In Miss Hazel's stew, there's something inside that no one else can replicate. Hazel thought to herself, it's really strange. Even though I've been a chef for 4 to 5 years, my skills have improved significantly since coming here. Is it a witch's ability? Hazel walked down the stairs, happily humming a random tune. Well, I'm not sure about that. Anyway, everyone enjoyed the meal. That's what's important. I feel so proud when I see everyone happily sharing my food. The kitchen assistants, and even the attendant Daniel too. At first, everyone was wary of me, but I wish I could continue working here. Maybe they've finally gotten used to me because they all seem to like my food. The people in the Grand Duke's mansion seem very friendly. I should go check on the kitchen again. With that thought, she happily skipped away. At the same time, in the kitchen, Daniel was standing in front of the soup pot. He thought or pondered, it's definitely not magic. The kitchen assistants and even Mr. Harrow were extremely surprised. They exclaimed in unison, no way. So, did someone add some kind of potion or substance? Harrow spoke calmly. Everyone be quiet. I watched the cooking process without looking away for a single second. Sir Daniel, the Grand Duke is preparing for his expedition tomorrow, isn't he? If there's something harmful in the food, I'm worried about everyone's safety. Daniel thought to himself, magic usually leaves a trace like a fingerprint. It feels like something more than magic, a nostalgic warmth. He stared thoughtfully at the soup pot. Then, Daniel turned to leave. Anyway, there's nothing dangerous, since your worries have been resolved. So, I'll be going. Wait, a voice called after Daniel. Is there any dark magic that can turn everything into frogs? As Daniel walked toward the door, he thought, unless someone is a fool, they wouldn't use such an obvious trick in cooking. Daniel opened the door and stepped out. By the door, Hazel had been secretly listening to their conversation. Since when? He opened the door, and Hazel was also panting with worry. He saw Hazel. She let out an embarrassed, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be here. I just wanted to come check on the ingredients for tomorrow. Daniel replied, then please come in. Suddenly, Daniel stopped her. Hazel's eyes were welling up with tears. Finally, she couldn't hold them back. The tears streamed down her face. Daniel was extremely alarmed. He stammered, no, this is... Hazel spun around and left, saying loudly, I'm sorry. Daniel watched her retreating back, stunned and bewildered, unable to react. The kitchen assistants inside also peeked out furtively. He let out a sigh. The kitchen assistants started gossiping among themselves again. It seemed she heard everything. The other replied, but at least she left quickly. She burst out laughing, but was also afraid. What if she turns us into frogs or something? Hey, a deep voice rang out, cutting them off. Watch your mouth. Harrow spoke, his face extremely menacing. They were startled and quickly said, sorry. Harrow grimaced. He put a hand to his forehead and sighed. Damn it, I've done something foolish. The next morning, in Hazel's room, she was lying face down on a pillow on the sofa. Sister Hazel, what's wrong? I'm just a little tired, she replied, lying. Desai jumped up from somewhere, practically hugging Hazel's head. I'm telling the truth. Desai licked Hazel's face, then her hair. She yelped in surprise, that hurts, then burst out laughing because it tickled. Hazel hugged Desai and petted it. At least I still have you guys. Desai's appearance seemed to comfort Hazel somewhat. The Grand Duke must have had a good reason for bringing me here. He wouldn't do anything to harm his siblings. She hugged Desai and lay down on the sofa, sighing. I know everyone treats me well only because they trust the Grand Duke, but the Grand Duke doesn't trust me. At this thought, she shot up. Desai jumped off Hazel. With disheveled hair, she sat on the sofa, thinking dejectedly. Even when I give gifts or cook delicious meals, I'm still suspected. I should have a drink. I've tried to keep myself pure because this is supposed to be a wholesome fairy tale. I'm sure I hid some strawberry wine in the cabinet at the cabin. Looking at herself in the mirror, Hazel was despondent. Why was I reincarnated as a villainess? It's so unfair. Suddenly, she let out an ah. Yes, I'm coming. Opening the door, she saw Chef Harrow standing outside. She exclaimed in surprise, Harrow. He bowed low. Miss Hazel, I'm truly sorry. No. Hazel quickly waved her hands, flustered. No, I'm fine. I understand. As the head chef, I know you were just worried about the ducal mansion. That's not all, Harrow interrupted her. No matter what I do, I can't keep up with you. That's why I looked for a reason to place blame. You even said I was cool, but instead, I behaved shamefully. Hazel became thoughtful and said, please raise your head. I accept your apology. To be honest, I was also wondering if I had some power I didn't know about. Harrow said, Miss Hazel, you are the one who is truly generous and wonderful. However, it wouldn't be right to simply be forgiven. Hazel looked puzzled. What? Harrow continued, I have a gift. I hope you will accept it. With that, he presented his gift. It was something that looked like the arms or legs of an animal. You don't have to give me anything. I don't like the feeling of being indebted. But Hazel still took the gift in her hands. She hesitated. Thank you. But anyway, this looks like it's from some kind of animal. Harrow said excitedly, it's a snake's body. When I was young, I traveled all over the capital in search of rare ingredients. And this is a treasure that appears only once in a century. Hearing this, Hazel was stunned, her jaw dropping. The object in her hands also fell. She was alarmed. What? You're giving me something so precious. Harrow burst out laughing and said, am I not a chef? But since you're a witch, I think you can make better use of it. Besides, it seems you've also been blessed by the god of cooking. Well then, since it's getting late, I'll take my leave. Hazel held the gift box in her hands. She let out an goodbye, wait, let's cook together tomorrow. Harrow, who was about to leave, turned around and smiled. I'll be waiting for you. There's still a long way to go, but if I keep moving forward step by step like this, one day, they will surely see the real me. The next morning, Luna happily waved and called out loudly, Brother, brother. Luca also chimed in, please come back safely. The cheerful scene made Luke pause. He asked, what's going on? This isn't like you two at all. Usually, Luna would say something sarcastic like, why don't you just leave and not come back? As for my little brother, Luca would burst into tears and cause a commotion throughout the mansion. What's with you today? Luke asked. Luna chirped happily. Don't forget to bring back presents for us. Luca said cutely, brother, what about me? Luke bent down and patted the boy's head. What is it? Do you want a present too, Luca? The little boy hesitated. It's not that. When you come back, let's play together. Luke's heart warmed. It was as if a garden of flowers bloomed inside him. He gave a gentle smile. Of course, I promise. So then, while I'm gone, Luke communicated with Hazel using eye signals. Was this you doing? Hazel nodded vigorously. Luke sighed and lamented inwardly. Oh my, Luna Bellbrand, daughter of the late Grand Duke. Listen carefully. He took Luna's hand and said seriously, during my absence from the mansion, you will be the head of the ducal household. Luna was stunned, her eyes wide and mouth agape in surprise. 1 hour before seeing the Grand Duke off, someone's voice rang out. What? I can't, Luke said. Luna is too young. Hazel replied cheerfully, please do it. She smiled and said, I'm telling you this not so she can actually be the head of the ducal household. Think of it as an honor for her. He wondered, why should I do that? Luke mumbled, although Luna is smart, she cannot inherit the title. Due to meaningless conflicts, the practice of bestowing titles upon women has been abolished. He turned away and said, all right. Hazel followed behind him, saying, Luna will act like an adult. She asked, you saw at the match last night, didn't you? Hazel didn't notice Luke's somber expression as she spoke. She will become more mature when you leave the mansion. I'm sure she will be very proud to be trusted by you. He proudly took Luna's hand and said, in your hands is the duty to protect our family. Please do not forget that responsibility and uphold the honor of our house. The little girl was very happy to hear the trust her brother had in her. Luke continued, for a grand princess to become the head of the house should serve as an example to everyone. But with eyes sparkling with confidence, the little girl replied, yes. On the other hand, Luke thought to himself, I was just nagging her not to get into trouble. But Luna declared resolutely, in a world where conspiracy and deception are rampant, I will set it right, just like a lord. Luca, standing beside her, cried out in alarm. That's a big declaration. He mumbled helplessly. How did she get so good at talking? Luke stood up and praised. I'm very happy to hear those words. And now, he kissed Luna and Luca on their foreheads to say goodbye. Luke mounted his horse and said, I'll be back soon. The two children looked up at him. Have a safe trip. That's right. When I return to this place, I'm sure that I will spend more time with the children, so that they will feel my love, just like what the witch told me. Luke's troops departed from the mansion. The little girl stepped out in a floral dress, arrogantly stroking her long hair. Hazel hurriedly exclaimed in admiration, "Oh my lady, it's so nice to see you so mature today." Luna asked, "No matter how hungry one is, the head of the mansion should still walk with elegance, shouldn't they?" She thought to herself, "Do you really believe that?" The little girl turned back and said, "And I want to discuss the distribution of chocolate for this week." Hazel reminded her, "No, my lady. You said the head has all the privileges, but he asked you not to use them to satisfy personal greed, right?" Luna twirled around, smiled, and said, "So why don't we give everyone some chocolate to celebrate me becoming the head?" Hearing the little girl's suggestion made her panic. Hazel became even more panicked, thinking if they did that, not only the Grand Duke's people, but Luna and Luca would also eat the chocolate. She stammered, Luna, you eat? Oh my, that's just the other side of the coin." Hazel was so happy she couldn't close her mouth, praising, "Why, you're truly a genius." Here, Daniel, chewing chocolate from behind, reminded, "I hope you focus on your work," which, despite all that noise, the position was still in effect. Luna watched her brother eat, reminding Luca not to drop it and to eat it up. She's so much like her older brother. The children's unexpected behavior had decreased significantly in the past few days. However, there was one thing that hadn't improved at all. She smiled and asked, "So, my lady, should we go to my house for lunch?" The little boy happily said, "I like having lunch at your house, Sister Hazel." Hazel, holding Luca in her arms, said, "Oh my, really? But you know I can only come here when the Grand Duke is not around, right?" Luca, upon waking up, went to the puppy and said, "Hello, little puppy." Luna, holding the cat in her arms, asked, "Sister Hazel, can I bring it outside with me?" She replied, "Of course." Hazel turned back upon hearing Daniel say, "As expected, I'm still not used to this place, doing things like this without his permission." He stepped in and asked, "Hey, this place is inside a wardrobe in a mansion, right?" Daniel, a little annoyed, said, "Even so, this is still." Seeing this, the sharp-witted Luna said, "Sir Daniel, didn't you also sneak in with us?" It was as if a star had hit him on the head. Daniel stood frozen stiff. The little girl asked, "What's wrong? Am I not right?" "Yes, one thing that still hasn't gotten better is..." She helplessly went over and told Luna, "Sarcasm is a bad habit. This causticity..." Luna looked up, smiled widely, and said, "Why? My brother does it too." Hazel tried to suppress her anger and muttered, "Your Grace, when he returns, I need to talk about that bad habit." Daniel was no less sarcastic. Luna would never have guessed that anyone could say you were Ilias's sister. The little girl got grumpy and yelled, "What do you mean?" He said, "It's a compliment. Is there a problem?" She helplessly called out, "Everyone." Hazel thought to herself, Sir Daniel is talking comfortably with the children. Suddenly, Luca, holding a baby rabbit, came over and asked, "Hazel, are we eating rice today?" She was startled, remembering something. "I was caught eating leftover cold rice at night." The two children came down to the kitchen, saw her, and asked Sister Hazel. Because the children had tried it once, they often requested fried rice. "Now, tying her apron," she replied. "All right, just wait a moment." Luca jumped up happily. "If I add a lot of vegetables and minced meat, the children will eat more heartily." She brought out the delicious fried rice and said, "I'm done. I often cook Korean dishes for myself. I could be reported for letting people eat food of unknown origin, but the children never doubted my cooking skills. I feel very grateful and proud of that. It looks delicious. Fried rice, what is this dish?" As expected, this dish is wonderful when eaten together. "Thank you for the meal, sister," she asked. "It's fun when we eat together, isn't it?" Daniel stood beside her, but didn't answer. Hazel recalled the scene of the two children eating in the large room and said, "It's a pity that the children have to eat by themselves at the large dining table in the ducal mansion. Initially, you objected to having lunch at my house." She smiled and asked, "When we eat together, Sir Daniel is also very pleased, right? Why don't you ask the Grand Duke to change to a smaller dining room?" He put his hand to his chin and said, "Let me think. I don't know if he will listen to me." Hazel praised. "As expected, you are a good person. Please make sure you pass on the message to the Grand Duke when he returns." She looked at the two children playing with their pets and said wistfully, "Because when the Grand Duke returns, I will leave." Daniel just quietly watched her from behind. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Kingdom, Luke ordered, "Let's rest for a bit, but be prepared." The soldiers replied, "Yes, sir." One soldier said, "Well then," as he sat next to the gray-haired soldier, he asked, "Is the rumor that he has a girlfriend true?" The gray-haired soldier wondered. Suddenly, he got excited. "Well, what interesting rumor is this?" "Who?" The brown-haired one said. "Who else?" "The Grand Duke." A gray-haired one exclaimed excitedly, oh my, the Grand Duke, the head of the palace. The brown-haired one quickly covered his mouth and said, look over there. He said, whenever he has free time, he looks inside that necklace. The brown-haired one continued, and with that expression, anyone who sees it would think it's a gift from a lover. The gray-haired one wondered, could it be the face of a girl from some noble family inside the necklace? The brown-haired one said, no, these days it seems more fashionable to put a lock of hair in it. The two of them snuck up behind Luke to look and discovered it was the children. He looked at the picture and thought to himself, I miss them so much. I wonder if they're being obedient and eating well. Luke sat on a tree branch, resting, thinking, how could you people understand my feelings? He slowly opened his eyes, muttering, also determined to say I love someone, even if I don't show it. Suddenly, a soldier came to report, sir, it's time to eat, holding a plate of food. Luke put each spoonful into his mouth, his heart aching. He muttered, I still have to eat. This is a battlefield after all. His face grew more and more uncomfortable. He lamented, oh heavens, why does it taste like this? Salty, sour, and sweet too. Luke remembered the two children and thought, the kids must be eating the witch's beef stew. After finishing that plate of food, his complexion was even worse than before he ate. He muttered, in this siege, quickly, I want to go back and eat Elliot, forgetting that when he returned, the witch would be fired. Suddenly, a cry echoed in the forest. Help, knights! Please help me. Everyone was surprised, looking in the direction of the cry for help. A woman appeared, calling Grand Duke. She rushed forward, crying and shouting, is it really you, Grand Duke? Please help my child. My child was taken by the man-eating bees in the forest. Luke muttered, man-eating bees. Just as the name suggests, they're a species of bee that eats people. It must have captured the child to feed its larvae. He looked at the crying woman in front of him and muttered, if it wasn't captured and eaten immediately, then there's still some hope. A soldier ran up to report, Your Grace, the reconnaissance team has located the swarm of man-eating bees. Luke immediately ordered for an investigation team at once. I will personally take charge. Everyone quickly mounted their horses and galloped to the reported location. He saw the man-eating bees flying and shouted. In there, Luke took out his weapon and ordered everyone prepare to aim and fire. Everyone raised their weapons and aimed at the target. A soldier holding an axe reported, the entrance is about to open. He swung the axe with great force at the bee's nest. Many man-eating bees flew out, but before they could do anything, they were hit by the soldier's arrows. Everyone used fire to burn them, shouting, success. A soldier, holding the child in his arms, hurriedly reported, Your Grace, the child has been found. Hearing this information, he happily turned to look. The soldier handed the child to Luke, saying, only a few external injuries. He held the child in his arms, smiled in relief, and said, thank goodness, this is really great. It's okay now. Let's go to your mother. Suddenly, the soldier who had been holding the child earlier shouted in panic, Gee, Grand Duke, behind you. Behind Luke was a flaming man-eating bee, flying in to attack. Luca innocently asked, Sister Hazel, how many more nights do I have to sleep until brother comes back? Hazel stammered. It was said that the Grand Duke's return date had not yet been determined. Because of the Emperor's order, he could only return after driving out all the monsters occupying the forest. A rough calculation was that it would take about half a month, but it had already been over 10 days with no news. She leaned close to the bed and said, all the broccoli in the vegetable garden, he will be back before they grow up. Hazel thought to herself, it takes 3 months for them to fully mature, so it's okay to say that. She smiled gently and said, let's watch the broccoli grow together and wait for him to come back, okay? The little boy's eyes widened as he replied, it would be great to eat that broccoli with brother. Hazel answered, that's right. Lucas smiled happily and said, I really want to see my brother soon. At this moment, Luke had been hit by the man-eating bee's attack and was lying on the ground, struggling to breathe. Everyone panicked and shouted, are you all right, sir? He protected the child and got stung by the bee. Doctor, hurry! A soldier whispered, hey, did you see that just now? The queen bee exploded by itself in midair. His face was uncomfortable as he muttered, damn it, in the heat of the moment, I revealed abilities that others shouldn't have seen. The doctor came to treat the wound and asked, Grand Duke, why did you have to do that? It would be terrible if the poison spread to your heart. It was just a matter concerning a child. Despite being injured, Luke laughed and said, but it's still good that I wasn't hit in the face. Don't you think that's lucky? remembering when the Crown Prince said, that boy would still be beautiful even in death. Just thinking of the Crown Prince's words, she wondered, how can you still laugh when it's this serious? The doctor gave a faint smile and said, oh my, what a pity. The Crown Prince won't have the chance to say those words at the funeral. She looked at his chest and said, the poisonous stinger didn't pierce your chest. It was the necklace that saved you. Luke picked up the pendant and muttered, the witch's gift. He looked at the shattered pendant. The picture inside was also shattered. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. He tried to get up despite his injuries, but the doctor said, wait a minute, Grand Duke. If you suddenly get up, Luke struggled to say, I have to return to the mansion right away. An image of the two children sleeping soundly appeared in his mind. He said, I have a bad feeling. At this moment, at the mansion, behind a bush, a discreetly dressed person was waiting for something. At night, outside the mansion, the two kids were still playing around. So she said, kids, didn't I tell you many times that we have to go to sleep? And then early this morning, we're going to the garden to learn horse riding and play ball with Daisy. I still have some energy left. You're really like a little beagle puppy. You two just won't listen. So she used magic, saying, stop playing and come to my room. I'll read you a fairy tale. Luca hugged Hazel. Luna held a storybook and said, I want to read a fairy tale. The kid held it eagerly, saying, I'll read it all today. Hazel mumbled, because Luna's reading ability has improved significantly recently. She's really into reading fairy tales. So cute. Hazel replied, all right. Luna began to read. After a few days passed, the witch gave her some very, very rough seeds. Is that right? Hazel smiled gently and praised her. Our Luna is so amazing. The kid stammered through the reading. When it grew, the flower bloomed. She looked at the petals. Hearing Luna read, Luca had fallen asleep. The kid also started to get sleepy but kept reading. She saw a very small, very beautiful little girl. She smiled and thought to herself, she's about to fall asleep while reading a fairy tale. I'll wait until the kids are fast asleep and then take them to their own rooms. After finishing the story, Luna mumbled, I want to be a princess too. Thumbelina, who flew into the sky with a swallow and slept on a bed made of a walnut shell. Just as she finished the sentence, a flash of lightning and thunder struck loudly, startling all three of them. They screamed in fear, looking out the window. Hazel mumbled, is it raining? Lucas started crying. Luna was very scared, while she thought gloomily they were just about to fall asleep. Luca asked with a pitiful face, Sister Hazel, can't you sleep here today? Hazel thought sadly, but their brother said I couldn't. But leaving the children alone in a dark room with weather like this, it just makes their mood worse. She looked over and noticed someone missing, calling out, Luna, are you also scared of thunder, Luna? Luna, sitting in a corner, replied, of course not. I just want to protect Luca and Larry. Luca laughed and said, she used to be very scared. The kid denied it. The head of the ducal mansion. How could I be afraid of thunder? Thunder struck again, and the little girl immediately covered herself with a blanket and screamed, no way. Hazel sighed and thought to herself, I have no choice. After the two kids fell fast asleep, she and the two pets also fell asleep, mumbling, finally, everyone's asleep. This reminds me of my first day at the ducal mansion. Hazel said, anyway, it's because of the weather, so the Grand Duke won't punish me, right? Suddenly, there's a loud noise from outside, startling her and making her eyes fly open. Hazel got out of bed, shouting in her head, seriously, I just got to sleep for a bit. What is it this time? She peeked through the crack in the door. Then Hazel stepped outside. She saw two people fighting. What's this? Did the guard get into a conflict? She thought. She wondered, could it be that they're drinking and causing trouble at this hour? I'll complain to Daniel when I see him. But when Hazel looked a little closer, she mumbled, wait a minute, that person, Daniel. Suddenly, the door burst open, startling her and making her scream. The man on the ground mumbled, why did someone come out of Luna's room? Hazel shouted, hey you. She wondered about his clothes. Isn't that the uniform of a servant in the ducal mansion? The man with the scar asked, oh my, is this girl the nanny? Where are the children? Hazel was horrified. She turned around to look at the two sleeping children. The man ran towards her, saying, where are you going? Daniel shouted, Hazel, absolutely do not hand over the children. The man with the scar chased after her, shouting, stop. Hazel quickly and deftly slammed the door shut just before he could catch them. After escaping that part, she stood with her head down. Sister Hazel, she mumbled, that was too dangerous. Daisy and Larry ran up and asked, Sister Hazel, what's wrong? She replied, I don't know either, but first, with a serious expression, Hazel said, we have to take the children and hide. She went to the bed and called out, kids, wake up, we have to go hide. Luca woke up drowsily and asked, what's wrong? Hazel looked at the kids and mumbled, "The kids have gotten bigger lately. I can't carry them by myself. There's no more time. I can't waste anymore." She conjured a bottle containing a pink liquid and said, "Kids, do you want to try Thumbelina's strawberry juice?" Lucas said excitedly, "Strawberry juice," and Luna said eagerly, "Thumbelina." But when Lucas smelled it, he said, "But this doesn't smell like strawberries." As soon as the two drank it, they shrank, completely astonished. The two small children fit in the palm of Hazel's hand. They exclaimed in amazement, "We really turned into Thumbelina." She said, "Now we have to go quickly." After breaking down the door with an axe, the man with the scar revealed a vicious face and asked, "Nanny, where are the children?" "They're not in your room. If you don't want to end your life, you'd better tell me." Hazel hid the two kids behind her back and replied, "I don't know." She cupped the two children with her hands and mumbled, using a dangerous axe in front of the children again. He got angry and shouted, "I asked you, where are the brats?" Hearing him dare to call the two children that, Hazel became furious and asked, "The brats? You woke up my angels, and you dare call them brats?" Daisy and Larry, hearing the tone in her voice, turned their heads with some apprehension. Hazel put them in her pocket and instructed Luna and Luca, "You two stay here for a moment, okay?" The man with the scar was confused and mumbled, "Why do I have a bad feeling?" She switched to witch mode, her finger glowing with blue light, and shouted, "I can't take it anymore either," and continued. Hazel shot out a bolt of green lightning, striking straight down into the mansion. The man with the scar, terrified, dropped his axe and held his head, trembling, saying, "Hey, hey, hey." He looked around wondering, what was that? Did nothing happen? The man with the scar shouted, "Are you messing with me? I really have to kill you before you can. Ribbit, 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 ribbit." He finally turned into a bright green frog. At her feet, the little frog had a question mark over its head. Hazel immediately kicked the frog, sending it flying out, shattering the window glass. She shouted, "Get out." Behind her, a voice suddenly said, "What was that light just now?" One of the three men spoke up that, this the nanny's room? She took the brats and hid. "No." Hazel turned around and pointed at them, saying, "You guys get out of here too." The weapons they were holding turned into food. The group was in an uproar, wondering, why is it sausage? What happened to this cat? She shouted angrily, "I still haven't calmed down. It was so hard for me to get the children to sleep." The bad guy screamed in terror, "It's a witch." When everything was stable, Hazel's finger trembled. She bowed her head and mumbled, "I had already decided. I wouldn't do the things that wicked witches do. Why provoke a kind person?" Hazel shed a tear, thinking Then suddenly, a man rushed forward to attack her. Before she could react, luckily Larry rushed forward and bit him. It looked at her and said, "Sister Hazel, leave this to us. You go on ahead." Hazel quickly ran away, saying, "Thank you. I'll reward you with handmade beef jerky." Larry's eyes lit up and it said, "Sort it by type for me." She used magic to transport the kids to another place. Hazel fumbled in her pocket and mumbled, "The children must have been very scared. I have to pretend like nothing happened." Hazel said, "Kids, you can come out now." Lucas sobbed, hugging a worried Luna, and said, "Sister Hazel, I was so scared." Hazel gently brought the two small children to her cheek, stroking them comfortingly, that it's okay. "It's okay now, it's all over. It's time for good children to go to sleep, right?" She placed the children on the table and instructed, "I'm going to find a bed. You two wait here for a moment, okay?" Luna exclaimed, "Everything has become so big." Both of them said, "Giant cookies." Hazel looked at the kids and mumbled, "Even though it's sweets, eating a few cookie crumbs should be fine." Luca reached the sugar jar, saying, "So delicious." She stopped that action, saying, "You can't have that." Hazel said, "It's almost done. Just wait a little longer. Hang in there." After making 2 beds for the 2 kids, she said, "Done." Luna exclaimed, "It's really a walnut shell bed. Does it have a flower petal blanket?" Hazel held a flower vase and then used magic to reply, "Of course. Sleep well and have sweet dreams here." But when the flower petals fell down to make a blanket, Lucas said, "So soft." And Luna praised, "It even smells nice." Lucas said drowsily, "It's like sleeping among the flowers." "I'm so sleepy." Only Luna, it seemed she still had something on her mind, so she hadn't slept. Hazel asked, "Aren't you sleeping, Luna?" The kid wondered, what if those bad people come again? She asked in surprise, "They've come before." Luna recounted, "Although Luca doesn't remember, in the mansion and at birthday parties, I overheard the butler say that when I was little, the little girl's face was sad. She said, the nanny pressed a pillow on my face. I almost died." Hearing something so shocking, Hazel mumbled, "A 7-year-old child said this herself. I thought the children hated nannies. Why do they still look for me to be their nanny?" It turns out they needed someone trustworthy to rely on. She gently stroked the little girl's cheek with her finger and said, "It's okay, Luna. I'm here. Leave the adult matters to me. You kids just need to have sweet dreams. The bad guys have also been tied up. Daniel dusted off his hands and said, finally, it's done. He looked at the dog, the cat, and the sausages and mumbled, but what is this mess? Daniel asked where the witch and the children were. A soldier pointed at the wardrobe and reported, the Grand Princess and the Grand Prince. They weren't here from the beginning. As for the witch, she must be hiding in that wardrobe over there. He just let out an ah and walked over to open the wardrobe door. Daniel mumbled, I didn't expect it to have this use. Originally, I was going to wait for the Grand Duke to return, then immediately call a sorcerer to drive the witch away. Suddenly, he slammed the door shut immediately, making the two soldiers embarrassed and confused. What is it, Captain? A woman is alone in the wardrobe. The two of them shouted loudly, Captain, you've definitely been tricked by the witch. We have to open it quickly. What if it's not her? After he opened the wardrobe door, there was nothing inside, leaving the two soldiers bewildered. Then they shouted so loudly it echoed throughout the entire mansion. As Daniel approached, Hazel turned and asked, You're here? Have the bad guys been caught? He replied, Yes, thanks to you. Where are the children? She placed her hand on the table where the two children were sleeping soundly. Daniel just smiled faintly. He bowed his head and told Miss Hazel, Your contribution today, Miss Hazel. I will definitely report it truthfully to the Grand Duke. Daniel looked up at her, smiled, and said, The Thumb Princess and the Prince were almost kidnapped by a frog. In the end, the witch appeared and stopped it. A perfect fairy tale. It can't be. Please. After he finished speaking, they both burst out laughing. Somewhere at night, when Luke returned to the mansion, he trembled and said, Please. When he saw the room in chaos, the family photo at his feet was shattered. An indescribable fear appeared on his face. His voice trembled. Luna's room. How could this be? Hazel, holding a lamp, called out in surprise, Grand Duke. Seeing the furious look in Luke's eyes, she stammered, how could this be? He shouted, what the hell is going on? The children, Luke said. Hazel hesitated, not knowing what to say first, as the two little ones peeked out from behind her skirt. Daniel appeared and said, Let me explain, Your Grace. He led Luke to where the intruders broke in and said he actually dug a tunnel and climbed over the wall. Perhaps the one behind this is a reckless fool. Daniel looked at the wound and said, That guy's strength is also terrifying. Looking at their physique and voices, they're very similar to the barbaric mercenaries from the north. Luke was silent, wondering the northern tribes. I've experienced their arrogance and strength countless times on the battlefield. The guards and sentries are different from knights. They probably have no experience fighting those people. For them to withstand an attack without any harm. He clutched his head and sighed, saying it's impossible. It's hard to explain to you. Daniel said, Actually, this isn't our fault. He said, If it weren't for the witch, we would definitely not have the face to face the Grand Duke. Luke turned around, wondering the witch? Daniel explained. The witch turned their swords into sausages and broccoli. He said, confused, sausages, broccoli? He said, seeing her angry face, they're definitely not the same kind. Luke replied, So that's how it is. Daniel asked, That reminds me, what about the monster subjugation? You came back early, didn't you? Luke answered, I temporarily entrusted it to the commander. He said, So you received news about the raid? His face looked a little sad as he said, No, it's not because I received a report. Luke recalled his unreasonable behavior earlier when he shouted. Which? He said, Daniel, I have to go out for a moment. Postponed the interrogation of the prisoners. With a confused expression, Hazel said, Let me see for a moment. She sat on the chair and mumbled, All my luggage was brought in by magic. I don't even need to pack. The children will definitely cry. It's best not to say goodbye. Miss Hazel curled up dejectedly, her face sad, and thought, Should I leave a letter? Luke peeked his head through the door and called, Miss Hazel. Hearing someone call her, she immediately stood up. She looked out and asked, Why are you here, Your Grace? He walked over and said, I want to apologize for hastily suspecting you just now. I spoke unkindly to the benefactor who saved my siblings. Luke said, I truly don't know how to repay this debt. He looked towards the window and asked, Is the window broken? Hazel stammered that. She remembered throwing that damn frog out the window last night. She mumbled, He doesn't know everything, does he? Hazel panicked and hurriedly said, The window. I'll pay for the window. Although Luke still didn't understand what was happening, he replied, There's no need. That small amount of money is nothing to the Grand Duke's household. She was flustered. Actually, nothing happened. I originally wanted to ask you to extend the contract, but now I don't have the face to say such things anymore. Hazel's voice began to tremble. The window, and also the intruder disguised as a frog, but she shouted, "It's because that man called the children brats." He said in surprise, "What?" Hazel wiped her tears with her hand and said in a trembling voice, "I was really angry then. It wasn't intentional." Luke, flustered by the sight of her sobbing, called out, "Hazel." She continued to cry and said, Finally, I want to apologize to you, Grand Duke. I always thought you suffered from some kind of delusional illness." Hearing these words from Hazel was like a wrecking ball hitting his head. She continued, writing out such dense rules, having to taste test all kinds of poisons every time. Hazel recalled Luna's pitiful appearance and said, "But I heard about what happened yesterday from Luna. I was truly shocked." She said, "It's best to have a surprise attack like this. At least I can stop it." Luke asked, "Have you never heard about it?" "My parents didn't die of illness." Hazel wondered what. He explained, because their health was extremely good, there was no reason for them to die suddenly. No poison was detected either. In 1-year-old Luca's room, he had stopped breathing when he was found. Luke said, "Because of his unclear death, I became even more partial to my younger brother and sister." He propped his chin on his hand, looked away, and said, "Regardless of the cause of death, it was definitely an assassination." Luke said with a gloomy face, "Although I was only 17 at the time, still very young, it's not like that anymore." He stared intently at the necklace with the image of his 2 siblings and said, "Even if I get assassinated one day, I must hold on until the day Luca can become the head of the family." Hazel's expression became very worried after hearing everything. Luke said, "I don't want a second time." She cried, her voice trembling. How could something like that happen? He wondered, "Why are you crying again?" Luke worriedly came closer, wiped her tears with his hand, and said, There are only the 2 of us in the room. You're a girl, and you're crying like this. If someone passes by and sees." Hazel, still crying, said, "But the Grand Duke is still a child, too. It's been too hard for you." His face still showed worry for her, but he was puzzled. "I'm still a child." When Luke realized, his face stiffened a little as he said, "Right? To a witch who has lived for hundreds of years, I am still very young." Hazel wiped her tears and thought to herself, "Is the witch that old?" She hurriedly wiped her tears and asked, although I have to leave, can I come visit the children from time to time in the future?" He replied coldly, "No." Hearing the answer, Hazel became even sadder and said, "All right." As expected, she bowed, "Then I'll be leaving now." Seeing Hazel turn to leave, he looked down and mumbled, "How do I say this?" Luke called out, "Miss Hazel, the nanny contract has ended." She lowered her head resignedly and said, "Yes, I know." Hazel opened the door, remembering the image of the 2 little ones in her mind, and said, "Goodbye, kids." Suddenly, Luke gently grabbed her sleeve. This action of his surprised Hazel a little, despite his slightly uncomfortable expression. She asked, "What is it?" Luke said shyly, "What I mean is, let's sign a new contract." Hazel was stunned, her emerald eyes wide as if she didn't understand what Luke had said. He turned his face away. He held out his hand and said coldly, "Give me paper and a pen." Although she was a little confused, she still did as Luke said, pointing her finger at him and conjuring a piece of paper and a pen. He quickly signed the paper. Luke's mouth mumbled a curse, "Damn it." "Here, take it," he said, handing her the neatly written paper. The shy look had disappeared, replaced by a forced coldness. Reading the contents, Hazel felt a little skeptical that it's not rules, but a contract. A prominent line appeared. "Contract period, until everyone no longer needs a nanny." Her emerald eyes widened in astonishment. Hazel's whole body trembled, her voice a little panicked at, "Oh my goodness, what is this?" Her eyes lit up. Her hands deftly wrote on the contract. Then Hazel, beaming with joy, handed the contract back to him. "Here you are, your grace." Below was her pledge. "I will give them lots of love, play with them, and take good care of them." Taking the paper back, Luke's face darkened as he looked at the happy Hazel and mumbled, "Who draws a heart on a contract?" Her eyes welled up with tears as she rubbed her face with both hands. Hazel said, "It's because I'm so happy." Hearing that, he felt a little uncertain and wondered to himself, does she really like my younger brother and sister that much? I still can't understand. I really can't understand. Daniel crossed his arms, his face darkening. He shouted worriedly, looking at Luke and asking, "Why on earth did you have to extend the nanny's contract?" He said nothing, just looked at Daniel coldly. He thought worriedly, if he knew the terms of the contract, he would probably fly into a rage. He hummed softly, and Luke looked at the 2 children playing ahead. They excitedly pointed, "This spot has sprouted." "This one too." On the side, Daniel was still shouting resentfully, "Are you listening, Your Grace?" He crossed his arms, looked up ahead, and replied nonchalantly, "Since you hate supervising the nanny so much, I'll take responsibility for it myself for the time being." In his mind, Luke was silently assessing. That's right, now there isn't even a sign of a cold. It seems what the nanny said makes sense. Hazel had once said that, moreover, touching the soil like this can strengthen the immune system. Daniel tore him from his thoughts with an angry voice. "Even though she was instrumental in fighting off the intruders, I didn't expect you to be swayed so easily, Your Grace." He let out an annoyed sigh and reminded him, "The security team will be here soon, Daniel. Mind your own business first." Seeing Luke's expression, he was a little stunned and mumbled. Could it be that some amusing images were running through his head? She runs ahead, shouting softly, "Come and get me." He chases after her, saying nauseating things, "Be quiet, you little witch." Looking so happy, seeing Daniel lost in thought, Luke's whole demeanor darkened. His eyes widened as he warned, Hey, you'd better not be getting any strange ideas. I didn't expect you to be so regretful about not being able to supervise the nanny." He teased him openly, making Daniel panic. "If I report this to the subordinates." Seeing the situation was not good, he turned around abruptly. He walked away hastily, saying, "You absolutely cannot mention this to the subordinates." Narrowing his eyes, Luke waved his hand and pretended to ask, "You haven't left yet? What are you doing here?" So Daniel stepped outside, his hand still on the gate. Angrily, "I can't believe I left the night order just to serve this kind of superior. I must be crazy. Goodbye." Then the door was closed. He had made his move, leaving him there looking outside, falling into deep thought. Although they said they would move the prisoners to the dungeon for interrogation, in reality, there were many things that couldn't be done, because the magical energy detected was identical to the feeling received from the Crown Prince's mage. This was also evidence that could link the attack to the Crown Prince. But, clenching his fists, Luke was a bit uncertain. First of all, he couldn't act for the time being. To launch an all-out war, he needed help. But besides Daniel's family and the family of Marquis Andrew, I have no other allies. The people's hearts are easily stirred. If the Emperor skillfully escapes, I might even be framed as a traitor. He rested his forehead on his arm, which was placed on the door. He let out a sarcastic smile. But luckily, that also benefits us. Inside the ancient Valerian castle, a scream echoed through the night sky. This bastard, a young man with yellow hair, stood in the middle of the room, bowing respectfully. It was Crown Prince Jorith Valerian who looked up. His attitude was a bit defiant. Emperor Anbach Valerian pointed at Jareth. He angrily cursed, "To do such a reckless thing without discussing it with me at all. Are you insane?" The woman beside him quickly tried to calm Embassy, "Why, dear Majesty." Jareth is already reflecting on his actions. Finish this cup of tea and calm down. The girl below also added, "Father, please don't be too angry. This child didn't want such trouble either," Princess Regina Valerian added cheerfully. Consort Relagicu, who was beside them, frowned and quietly called out, "Regina." Beside her, the Emperor said in a low voice, "Jurat, you still dare to act pitiful." This startled him. He clenched his teeth, suppressing his anger and letting out a sound. He continued to shout, criticizing, "You are destroying my life's work. I used my ex-wife, a dark mage, and dark magic to push my older brother, the Crown Prince, aside. I constantly cast curses to ensure he would have only one heir, which took a lot of effort. But since my ex-wife's sudden death, all the curses have been lifted." The situation began to change. No one considers an immature brat like Jareth the successor to the Emperor. Anbach was so angry his whole body trembled. He gritted his teeth and said word by word, "Since you've replaced your older sibling as the Crown Prince, you must live up to this position. Do you know how the people compare you to Elliot?" Following his roar, the teacup also flew at the speed of light towards him. The tea splashed everywhere, and it fell to the ground, shattering. In the broken glass below, the figure of Luke appeared, flickering in and out of sight. To limit Elliot's actions, Regina gave up her right to inherit the throne. At the same time, a rule was enacted that women could not become the head of the family. But now the third child has suddenly appeared. Damn it. He grumbled that I know it too. To kill Elliot. That guy was constantly sent to the battlefield. Despite that, he still managed to win and returned safely every time. Anbach sat on the throne and said to the two women in the room, "I want to talk to Jareth for a bit. You may leave first, Regina. Loren, you should go too." The two of them left at the Emperor's words, but her eyes were still looking back, her face a bit cold, as the door to the room closed completely. Regina sarcastically said, "Is Jurath really insane? It seems I'll have to find a doctor for him. His whole body, yet only his face can be seen." If even his mind isn't right, that's truly terrible, isn't it, Loren? Turning her head to look, her eyes held a hint of gossip. She let out a mysterious smile. Another mistake. I still have the habit of addressing the consort from when she was a noble lady. This made her furious, but she had to grit her teeth and endure it. Clenching her fists, she cursed inwardly in frustration. What an arrogant girl. All right. The right to inherit the throne is enough. Just endure it a little longer. Her whole body trembled as she thought. Although she inwardly wanted to follow Jareth's suggestion to make him become like his mother. Inside the room, the Emperor rested his chin on his hand and reminded him, I always act cautiously according to my position. If this gets out, you'll be the death of us. He panicked and stammered an explanation, but father, I thought that which would help me. Jareth shouted in frustration, isn't she supposed to be one of us? I just wanted to use the witch's power to harm the third child, to locate the sleeping holy relic in the Duke's house. The relic that is rumored to have the power to conquer the world. The Emperor clenched his fist and slammed it on the arm of the chair. He shouted, that which is not one of us. She sides with money. Leaning his hand on his forehead, his whole body pressed against the door, Luke let out a sarcastic smile. Foolish Jareth. Suddenly, the door was thrown open by Hazel, causing him to stumble and almost fall forward. She was pushing a garden cart and said cheerfully, kids, today we're also in the garden. Then she was startled to see Luke standing there. She let out a surprised, oh, and quickly said, I didn't know you were here. I'm sorry. Luna saw her and happily ran over, shouting, Sister Hazel, look over there. The little girl pointed to the sapling in front of them and looked at her with a question. Why is only that plant growing so fast? This made Hazel panic. She looked in the direction she was pointing, a little worried. Her eyes widened. She hesitated for a moment and then sighed. Back when the intruders came, I used magic to get rid of the broccoli. After that, I hastily planted other saplings. While she was still flustered, he spoke up first at that. Hazel was in a complete panic. Her eyes rolled up. She thought to herself, a Grand Duke who knows nothing about raising children. How can he find a plausible reason? Don't say it. She rushed over to stop Luke. She raised both hands, intending to cover his mouth and stop him from speaking. But Luke was faster. He dodged to one side, causing Hazel to stumble. He cupped his hand over his mouth and shouted, it must have been fertilized. Hearing that, she breathed a sigh of relief. But the children became even more curious. Luca pointed at the sapling and repeated, fertilized? Luke gently explained, it means giving the broccoli delicious food. Hazel froze. Her raised hand didn't know where to go. She wondered to herself, did he see it? But I took so many things from the servants. Could he have seen that? A small, innocent voice rang out, but it doesn't have a mouth. She had no choice but to turn around and explain cheerfully, we use fertilizer through their roots. Look, they just need to eat this to grow up healthy and strong. Hazel took out a bag of something from the pile of things she had just pushed out. She spoke cheerfully while sighing in relief inwardly. Phew, I managed to trick them. The little boy's eyes lit up, and he asked with a watering mouth, eat that? This made the two of them freeze. They hadn't even processed Luca's innocent words, yet when a loud shout echoed everywhere. Luca, don't eat it. Later, sitting at the dining table, the little boy's happy face appeared. His mouth was munching on food, his cheeks puffed out. It looked delicious. Hazel stood there, breathing a sigh of relief and lamenting to herself, I really thought the boy had eaten the fertilizer. That scared me to death. Today's lunch menu is fried cutlets. Everyone worked very hard in the garden. She shouted enthusiastically to lift their spirits. On the other side, Luke, still with a cold face, mumbled judgmentally, aren't fried cutlets usually eaten with potatoes? Why is rabbit food appearing on a person's plate? The comment made Hazel freeze for a moment. She forced a smile and muttered to herself, but this is a common combination in Korea. She stood up and quickly explained, that tastes much better than it looks. Wait a moment. These are sesame seeds and peanuts that I roasted myself. Drizzle a little sauce on it and eat it together. I'm sure you'll change your mind. She drizzled the sauce over the food artfully. Hazel's skillful technique was met with approval from the two little ones. They cheered in admiration, with wide eyes and watering mouths wide open. As for him, he still had his arms crossed with a look of existential doubt. Then he continued to complain, what kind of farmer eats raw cabbage? Even a beggar about to starve to death wouldn't do such a thing. This made her furious. Brother, a small voice rang out, stunning Luke. On the opposite side, Luna clasped her hands together, resting her chin on them. Her face looked dangerous. Using her innocent tone, she said seriously, "Don't complain at the dinner table." Luke's whole body turned to stone in astonishment. The two kids took turns criticizing him. You want to become a bad adult who doesn't get to eat delicious food? That's right, you should eat whatever is prepared for you. Isn't that what you said? The questioning made Luke hesitate and stammer. You kids. How can you talk to me like that? Then he sighed, picked up his spoon, and started scooping up the food. He said with resignation, all right, I'll eat, okay? A few seconds later, the food on his plate gradually disappeared. Then it was all gone, not a single bit left. She was satisfied and teased him lightly. It seems the rabbit food suits your taste, doesn't it, Your Grace the Grand Duke? He could only give an embarrassed laugh. Resting his chin on his hand, he looked thoughtful and whispered, I really forgot that you're the one who can make Luna and Luca eat carrots. Hearing that, Hazel felt a hint of pride. Her emerald eyes widened as she thought to herself, after understanding him, you really do discover a lot of unexpected things, don't you? Not only did he allow the connection between the wardrobe and his wooden house, he even agreed to go to his wooden house for meals. But in some aspects, he was also very picky, like when she was speaking while Luke and Daniel were in the room. What if we changed the dining table and dining room in the mansion to smaller ones? He immediately refused, saying it was not possible. Daniel, standing to one side, thought for a moment before saying, as expected, in the witch's wooden house, the two ducal children are no longer picky eaters, and their food is also more delicious. Hazel also happily offered an opinion. How about we test eating in the wooden house? By the way, we can also check if the wooden house is safe. The memory ends here. Currently, the two kids were outside, joking around. Inside the room, as Luke lifted his cup to drink tea, she stood beside him and asked cheerfully, So, don't you think it was wonderful, today's meal? Looking at the cheerful scene outside, she said, with no servants, just family living together in harmony. Suddenly, he called her in a harsh voice, Miss Hazel. It seems you have forgotten that the nanny is not family. As he nonchalantly reminded her, she spun around and exclaimed, I didn't say that. What I mean is that the dining room in the Grand Duke's mansion is too large for 3 people. The atmosphere is also very serious. You can't turn mealtime into a social etiquette class. Then wouldn't eating become a duty for the children? That would make a person feel uncomfortable. This is your fault. Hazel criticized him frankly, making him ponder for a bit. The sound of footsteps in the garden was still as lively as ever. He had to accept it. This week, we will eat at the wooden house then. Hearing that, she exclaimed excitedly, Wow, that's a wise choice. The happy image of Hazel was reflected in the serious, cold eyes of Luke. As she cast a spell to conjure some candies, she tossed them towards him and said, To express my gratitude, I'm giving you chocolate. Luke reached out his hand to receive them, asking in surprise, What? Hazel, still excited, took the opportunity to ask, Also, you've been working a lot lately. Are you feeling tired? Luke answered honestly, I'm fine. She continued, That's right. You've had many achievements in exterminating monsters. Did you receive any reward? He leaned back and said calmly, I heard there will be a party held at the palace. I thought I was finally coming home, but it turns out I have to leave again. Hazel lowered her head and said softly, as if to herself, If the children came along. Luke immediately cut her off. The children would be very bored. In her mind, she hesitated slightly. Luna also wants to go to the palace. Would it be embarrassing to say it out loud? Then, on the other side, he spoke up, But Miss Hazel, aren't you always treating me like a child when you talk to me? The unexpected question made her panic. Unable to react in time, she stammered. What? I was just not letting her finish. Luke continued. I am a Grand Duke, after all. I hope you won't see me as a weak child. Hazel was flustered, thinking to herself, This is terrible. Has he found me out? She turned to go outside, replying sadly, Taking care of you is really embarrassing. All right, I'm leaving. Sitting on this side, Luke spoke up to stop her. No, wait a moment. I have something to say. Hazel turned her head back, giving him a confused look. He said gently, Let's add one more rule. What, adding it now? Luke didn't seem to care about her look, rummaging around while mumbling, notebook and pen. Here they are. After a moment, Luke handed the paper towards Hazel, reminding her, Here, get used to it. Holding the paper in her hand, she was a bit startled, recalling the image of him in the garden, sitting there and declaring in a low voice from now on, no physical contact with the master is allowed. The reminder threw Hazel into a circle of doubt. She asked again in surprise, What? Why so suddenly? It's as if you've forgotten the incident in the garden. Luke said in a low voice, Didn't you just pounce on me? In her mind, Hazel mumbled, Just now. Could be that time? Her jaw dropped as she thought in shock. That's not right. That was just a slip-up I made because I was anxious. Seeing him misunderstand and make such an unreasonable assumption, Hazel became angry. Luke added, Also, Don't open your mouth when you're surprised. This made her even more furious, and she shouted, "What? Hey!" In her mind, Hazel mumbled a curse, and he says he's not a child. His temper is just like a child's. Conjuring a piece of paper and a pen, her attitude became serious as she said, "The Grand Duke has no regulations? Very well, I will write one for you." Her attitude showed she wanted to determine a winner and loser. Watching Hazel's hand writing swiftly, he widened his eyes in surprise. "What? Hey, I am not a member of the Grand Ducal family." She didn't seem to care much and read aloud softly. "It's called the brother regulation. Although you are a good older brother now, I hope you can become a more mature older brother. Lately, he's been living harmoniously with the children, always walking behind them like a guard." So she wrote a few more regulations below as follows. 1. Strictly forbidden to say bad words like damn it. 2. Praise the children 10 times a day. 3. Actively participate in activities with the children. On the other side, Luke's face darkened as he clearly wrote 2 words, objection. "What is this?" "It's because the nanny was too busy that I couldn't join in." On his paper, he also wrote down the words he had just said. "No physical contact with the master. Do not open your mouth when surprised." Hazel, annoyed and competitive, shouted loudly, "No sarcasm allowed. Luna often imitates the Grand Duke. This will become an obstacle on my path to properly educating the children." Her shout stunned him. "Imitates me? Luna?" After a moment, Luke casually denied it. "What can be done about it? Luna's personality is exactly like her deceased mother's. Her mother has truly become an obstacle to Luna's growth." Hazel roared, emphasizing once more, "No sarcasm." Then she cast a spell to conjure a cloth and threw it straight at his face. Hazel reminded him, "I'm just following the rules." The Grand Duke's way of speaking is very unpleasant and will become a bad habit for them to learn. Her assertion left him speechless, not knowing what more to say. The peace that greeted the Grand Duke's family was only temporary. Time passed on the white, snow-covered road. The carriage was moving slowly down the road. Inside, the atmosphere was very quiet. Luke placed both hands on his knees and called softly, "Miss Hazel, the journey is almost over. Can you relax a little?" In contrast to the scene on this side, on the other side, Luca and Luna were playing together very happily. She turned her face to look outside and replied sulkily, "The carriage is too bumpy. What if it bumps into me?" He looked out, confused, and called her Miss Hazel. "Really, what do you think of me? I'm truly very curious." The 2 kids excitedly chimed in. "Isn't he a nagging great demon king?" Seeing this, he frowned, widened his eyes, and reminded them, "That wasn't the question, Luna." Luca, standing beside her, quietly asked him, "Have we arrived yet? When will we get there?" "About 6 more hours," Luke replied gently. The 2 children didn't let up on their nagging. "You said 6 more hours just a while ago, too." On her side, she looked out at the sky, her face sad as she thought. Today is already the 4th day of sitting in this carriage. We are on our way to Ree Island. Tomorrow is the first day of the new year. All the noble classes of the Empire will gather together. A day to hold a grand celebration for the new year. Luca's eyes lit up as he said, "It's been a long time since we've been out. This is so fun. I'm definitely staying up late tonight." Luna's face darkened as she calmly exposed him. "You said the same thing last year. Then you fell asleep at 9 o'clock. Hazel's mood wasn't very cheerful either, thinking to herself, "My little chestnuts have to stay in one place, unable to go out. They must be so bored." So she pulled herself together, put on a bright, vibrant smile, looked at the 2 children, and called out, "Hey, my little chestnuts, want to play a fairy tale game before we arrive?" Luke asked coldly, "Do we need to use ink in the carriage?" Hazel replied, "No need for that. We just need to make up the story one sentence at a time." She explained excitedly. For example, there was a Princess Snow White who fell asleep after eating a red apple from her stepmother, then was awakened by a prince's kiss. Hazel cheerfully began, "Let me think for a bit. A long time ago, there was a poor couple living in a dark forest. The couple had 2 children, a son named Hansel and a daughter named Gretel. The poor couple abandoned the children deep in the forest. But the children," here she stopped. "The next person is Luke." He told a horror story in a low, cold voice. Hansel and Gretel went to the village police station and reported their parents for child abandonment. This left Hazel dumbfounded. She roared angrily, "This isn't a fairy tale." He replied calmly, "Starting with parents abandoning their children, you call this a fairy tale?" The excited atmosphere Hazel had built was ruined, but she could only feel helpless. She rested her chin on her hand and fell into thought. He's right, it really does cause a misunderstanding. I was just curious to see what the fate of Hansel and Gretel would be in this retelling. Opposite her, Luna said cheerfully, "Hazel, it's my turn." Hansel and Gretel didn't want to live with their parents, so they ran away from home. Luke was furious but didn't dare to get angry, only saying softly, "Luna." Luca, not paying attention to the situation, enthusiastically continued the story. The children met a witch in the forest. The witch made them delicious carrot cake. Luna protested, "No, that's not it. That's not Hazel." But the little boy didn't care, still immersed in his own story. After that, Luca, his sister, and his brother, along with Hazel, lived happily ever after. The story left the two adults not knowing what to do in the situation. Luke and Hazel glanced at each other with awkwardness, then both turned their faces away, leaving a sense of embarrassment. She raised her voice to change the subject. You two, how about we play dominoes? The two kids were equally helpless. So, is there a word that starts with Ice Cube? Someone had started first, but the situation suddenly changed. The coachman shouted loudly, "Grand Duke!" The footsteps of snowmen are echoing nearby. He opened the door, stuck his head out, and asked how many. The coachman estimated probably 2 or 3 are approaching. He nodded, calculating, and said, "Put Victor at the back, a little far from the carriage." Snowmen are very easy to deal with. Miss Hazel and the children should just stay in the carriage. Luke said, not turning his head, calling back inside to remind her. She also moved closer, holding the two children tightly, and said seriously, "I will do that." A howl echoed from the forest. His eyes narrowed dangerously. The footsteps shook the ground, signaling that a pack of monsters was approaching. Their large figures appeared menacingly. They stared at the carriage, as if wanting to attack. He gripped the hilt of his sword and stepped outside, not forgetting to repeat his words to protect the children. Then he skillfully drew his sword. It emitted a strange light. The fleeting sword strokes left Hazel stunned. A stream of light suddenly appeared, surrounding the carriage, forming an inviolable restrictive circle. She touched the window, looking outside and wondering to herself. The carriage was powerfully protected. The light it emitted was truly dazzling, making her squint and cry out. A bit of worry was in her heart. If it's like this, if an accident happens, we can't get out. She mumbled, "What if the Grand Duke is in danger?" The two children looked outside, their eyes wide with amazement. Luna said, "Sister Hazel, didn't brother say snowmen are easy to deal with? Why don't we sit down and continue playing dominoes?" Suddenly, it was the two children who were reassuring her. This made Hazel's face freeze as she thought to herself, "This kind of confidence is just like your brother's." She thought so, but a worried look flashed in her eyes. Staring intently outside, she said, "No matter what, he can't deal with 2 snowmen by himself." Outside, the gleaming tip of his sword pointed down as he leaped up and launched a powerful strike towards the snowman, taking down one of them first. Blood splattered everywhere, staining his handsome face and his cold, sharp expression. Hazel, inside the carriage, looked up at the window. She was astonished by this sight. His emotionless purple eyes were imprinted in Hazel's green eyes. Yes, the two children inside were still playing dominoes. What did it just end with? With what? With what? Yes, snowman. Sister, you said snowman. You made a mistake. Snowman, snowman, puppet. It's puppet now, Sister Hazel. Luca grabbed her cloak, pulling it down to remind her. "It's your turn, Sister Hazel." Puppet, puppet. She wasn't focused. Her gaze was still fixed outside the window. Startled, she mumbled, "Brother." His figure stood imposingly against the white snow. Below him was a pool of blood. His cloak was also smeared with streaks of blood. Hazel's eyes shone brightly, as if drawn into this scene. She exclaimed, "Brother is so beautiful." Thank you for watching today's video. Our story continues with many exciting developments ahead. So don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel to support us and not miss the latest story chapters. We wish you moments of relaxation and fun. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.